FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man
is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God. So we cannot a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
WESN.
Good morning and welcome to AM Prime on WESN. I am Naomi McNish.
And I am Jada McLeod.
So, as always, today we're super excited because it's the middle of the week,
yes,
right? And it's also Wild Wednesday, which is a very exciting day. So make sure and stay tuned for the end of the show today for that. And we're always excited to see what Mr. Ricardo Meade is bringing on the show.
Yes, it's, me, I can be very freaked out sometimes.
Yeah, and he started doing a thing where he's not telling us what animal is coming beforehand, so we're just as surprised as you are.
And so, yes, everybody in the studio is just like, okay, what's coming, we have to prepare, but we can't, we can't. All right, but we still have a very riveting and exciting show for you today. This morning, for our first interview, we're joined by Dr. David Jonathan Coker. He is a medical professional by trade, and it's no secret that when you're doing a job like that, you have to make time for the fun in life, the games of life. So that's probably why he would have founded the Above Board company, whose purpose, or which is the purpose, is to provide wholesome social opportunities for the entire family through board gaming, and therefore bridging generational gaps.
Yeah, and we're also going to discuss, you know, the back to your roots. This is an ultra game night experience designed to bring people together through board games, music, and, you know, culture. So we're going to introduce Dr. David Jonathan Coker. Good morning. Good morning,
Good morning, guys. Morning. How's the audio this morning?
Beautiful.
Perfect. Booming. We love that.
Great. Nice. Let's go.
Let's go. So, okay, something I like to start off with is, what is your morning routine? How do you kickstart your day?
All right. Well, let me give a little background story, right? So I am 5 years married come Friday. So in 2 days, I'll be 5 years married.
Congratulations.
To the beautiful Emily Coker. Shout out to Emily. Morning. So we actually have a 3-year-old daughter, and she goes to her nursery/academy, right? So every morning at 5 a.m. we are up. You understand? We organize the lunch kits, organize the car, organize baby, make sure she has a little breakfast. I am on the road by about 6 a.m. to drop her off by about 6:15. Then I'm heading to San Fernando General Hospital, where I've been working for the last 8 years. And the wife is heading to Port of Spain because we are right in Central right now. So once we kiss good morning, we diverge. I go south, she goes north.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Sounds like
It's
a
busy
morning,
day.
but it works.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah, I mean, you have to make it work, yeah? You have to make it work.
There's a method to all the madness.
Facts.
So, in having this sort of morning routine, this sort of routine for your life, what even inspired you to say, well, let me...
Actually, I want to know, I think this is a question, you know, based on the introduction, you're a medical doctor by profession, right? Yes. That switch, medical doctor by profession, it's a serious job, and then you founded Above Board. How does that, where's the connection?
Yeah.
So I always say, right, my life is 50% hospital, 50% hospitality. So even before I became a medical doctor, I was always into hosting either Christmas parties at my home or board game nights for free, of course, you know, because I just love what board game does for people and for the authentic conversations and connections, right? So in the medical field or any field, be it law, be it business, be it engineering, I think it's very, very important to maintain a healthy balance in life, especially for your mental health. Because it's no secret that being in the medical fraternity is extremely stressful.
Yes.
You know, and if you don't have that I would say a sweet escape or a healthy exit strategy, something to kind of give you some vibes in your life to maintain that equilibrium is very, very one-sided. So I always said, you know what, I just have to find a way to balance my life. So board games has always been a part of my life since childhood. It started with Scrabble actually, and if you look behind me, you can see that Scrabble is the board game that is on my Above Board logo, you know, as an homage to when it started. So I kind of really relied on what the board game did for the family, or the family nights and stuff. You must have a game there somewhere. Because even if folks don't know what to talk about, I always say the board game speaks for itself.
Yes.
And it breaks those barriers, you know. So at least for me on a personal mental health level, I had to have board games in my life. And I saw what it did to my wife. Of course, it wasn't her hobby before, but as soon as she met me, it's like, hey, this thing is real vibes.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm seeing experience on your website, 14 years for you and experience 4 years for your wife.
You did your homework. I'm impressed, guys. I'm impressed. Yeah. So for the mental health, and I saw what it did for people, right? And I'm like, hey, so the whole brainchild of Above Board company, as you're on that point, it actually started in the pandemic when we were all under lockdown, right? And even when the max amount of those who could congregate was 10, I still had undercover board game events. Don't tell Mr. Gary.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, no, I mean, of course, all the protocols were observed. The guys, I can't be irresponsible in COVID. I really can't be. I'm a doctor for You know, right? Yeah.
And we
so
have to keep ourselves sane during that time, so that's understandable.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, though. You had to keep yourself sane. I'm an extrovert at baseline, as you all could probably tell by now. I need people in my life.
Yeah.
You know? So the whole thing about above board, it was conceptualized in 2020, like I would say like January, February. Actually, no, around March there, around my birthday, when it was it became a pandemic. Interesting fact, it actually became a pandemic on my birthday itself, March the 11th, but that's an aside. I was like, above board. Of course, the pun is there, right? It's a board game. But of course, I'm a man of principle. I'm a Christian, actually. I love the Lord, and I want to give folks access to a different type of fun. Like, it's clean fun, but the vibes, just vibes. And like, if you come to an above board event, be like, wait, now, I didn't expect to have so much fun. You understand? So it's a kind of way to open folks' eyes to what is possible. And above board company, ABC, of course, ABC, the simplicity of that phrase, ABC. And if you check on our page and stuff on Instagram and Facebook, every single post has some kind of ABC acronym. Because what I'm trying to do is juxtapose the simplicity of ABC, being like a child, with the complexity of the human mind to make all of these acronyms, you know, because I pride myself on that.
So you like the games of life, the trick of life.
Yeah, and having consistency throughout, it will keep people constantly thinking about, you know, the original.
Above. In your sleep.
Yes, I feel like I will go home and just be okay. ABC, ABC, ABC. Like it's going to stick.
And then you're like,
me.
okay, above board company.
Yeah.
That's intention. That's intention.
Love that. So I mean, well, the thing with board games, right? Board games tend to create a lot of. It's very intense, you know, and when you're playing with friends or family, it can get, you know, pretty out of hand sometimes, especially playing with competitive people. I myself am guilty. I am very competitive. So how do you, you know, you're dealing with strangers coming into a space, playing these board games. How are you going to manage that, manage the different personalities coming together on one board?
So I'll say two things, right? We always start up our events, and this will be our 4th Ultra Game Night, right? I always started with an ABC and above board convo. All right, so we kind of tell folks exactly what the whole theme of the night is about, because every night has a theme, and there are also sub themes as well. So in that introductory convo, I also speak about the ABC, the above board culture. You know, because a lot of folks have post-traumatic stress actually, because of bad childhood experiences, folks being too competitive, etc., folks spoiling the game by cheating off, all those kind of things. I say, guys, in the above board culture, no levels of cheating is condoned at all. If you're playing fair, you understand? We're trying to teach you guys how to win graciously and lose graciously, you know? And these events are actually targeted more to adults, so it's from 16 to 100, because I really want to win the adults first, you know. I'm trying to bring them, of course, back to their roots. I can't bring a 3-year-old back to her roots. She's already there. You know what I mean? So it is for the adults primarily, and to show them a different way of having fun. If you come to have a good time, try not to cheat, because we are people of standards. We are above board, pun intended, you know. Everything is as you see it, and just come and have a good time. Also, what we do, we try to have some icebreakers in the jump, just to kind of disarm folks, because we know, as you rightly said, folks are coming from different parts of the country. Some folks coming from deep south, some folks coming from Arima. Last time we had somebody from Cedros, and the first 3 events were actually in Cuba. We try to have some nice icebreakers to kind of mingle and mix everybody from the jump, you know, because we are against those forming just cliques and staying with your clique whole night. And if you have no clique, you're on your phone whole night, you know. So there are different aspects of the above board culture that we try to emphasize at the start of each event, so they know, okay, these things are what we stand for, these things are no, come and have a good time.
So I want to get a little bit into the business of games, the business of games, because in your experience, you would have known, you would have realized that this is a profitable endeavor. How did that connect for you? When did you realize that?
So in my personal experience, I've come to realize that the product is not the board game per se, but the product is the vibes.
Yeah.
And vibes is a commodity that can be monetized. All right, and there are many, many board games out there. So it isn't like you're going to come to an event and just we slap a game in front of you. That hosting aspect, where there's a human element, and that is what is really important to us. So when I saw on the small scale in my house, I would say the largest game night I was able to host on my own, we had about 50 adults somewhere in my parents' home, be it in the living room or the porch or outside, you know, like we kind of put these tables everywhere. And I was like, wait now, all I'm hearing is laughing, scandalous laughing. I think this could make it big. But the thing is, we have to make sure that they know that we are going beyond the game. Because as you would see, our slogan is beyond the game, right? Because it's not just about the game, guys. It's about the people we are trying to reach, the people we are trying to change lives. You understand? So this is what I call a social experiment. Folks have a need. So whenever you are launching a business, you have to look at what the demand is and what the supply is. There's a social need, especially post-COVID. I think there's still a need for folks to make friends again, and especially as adults, when we lose that sense of childlike wonder. You don't know how to make friends no more. You understand? All you're doing now is the hamster wheel of work, home. If you're lucky, you might make a gym. We are trying to kind of divorce folks from that that very, very strict routine, and we are trying to show folks, hey, you should invest financially in your social life, because it's very, very, very important for folks to have a connection in these trying times, because the times are hard. You understand?
There's a phrase that I like that says, community takes work, community takes investment. And I think
it takes investment and intentionality.
Yes, and I think that's what Above Board is really set on. And that's why I really like the principle of it, beyond the game.
Beyond. That's right. It's about the people. It's not even about the game. This is not a game. You see what I did there? It's not a game.
It's not a game. It's beyond the game.
And you know, what I find interesting as well, the theme of the event, Back to Your Roots. I know a lot of young people today may not, I think we can all agree we grew up playing some type of board game, right?
Yes.
But now board games are not that popular. You know, we've drifted away from board games, and
to the e-games.
To the e-games, and not only that, I think you'll see more consistency with card games now than board games. And that whole Back to Your Roots thing, I want to know how are you gonna make it appealing to, I guess, a younger generation, because I think the older generation would gladly go back to that, because that was a great fun time for them. But the younger generation now, to allow that, even you said from 16 to 100, right?
Yes.
A 16-year-old may not want to go back to board games. They're not too far off from it, and maybe they didn't grow up playing board games. Maybe they were iPad kids, you know?
Right.
So how are we doing this? How are we enticing the younger generation to get involved in this culture?
Right, sure. So I would say a few things. One thing, my wife and I, because we are the co-founders of this business, right? What we like to do is go to the very, very beautiful venues in the country. So even before you reach ABC, you'll be hit with the venue, right? So for our first 3 events, we went to the beautiful host venue in McBean in Couva. Shout out to the host family. Beautiful rustic venue, a lot of wooden fixtures, bistro lights, and all those kind of things. So from the ambience alone, there is that wow factor, right? Of course, it can be held anywhere, but for these very big ultra game nights, we want to give folks an experience. So even if you're coming to play a single game, just being in that vicinity and with those ambiance and stuff, that ambiance, you're just like, wow, I really enjoy this. If you're just coming to take selfies, you'll have a good time. So, I'm going to call my friend, I could call him a friend now, Mr. Jude Patrick from Roots Yard, Scallywag Bay. He actually discovered us on Instagram, and he actually wanted to reach out to us. He's like, bro, I see you. I see what you guys are doing. I want that vibes in the West, because we were trying to think, how can we get in this West? Because for some people, I'm not saying all, but for some people, that lighthouse has like a force field around. They can't go beyond it, right? So they can't go beyond that. So I see this as divine providence. God saw us, And Mr. Patrick saw, he said, bring it to the west. So Scallywag Bay, you all must know it. It's Rootyard Scallywag Bay. It's a beautiful venue.
Yes. I love it.
Of course. And they have all the attractions now, the mini golf. I see they recently brought the skating rink. So the youth want to come just to see all those things. It's right by the ocean, guys. All those yachts and stuff in ice shot. Imagine you playing a game, right? And you are hearing the sea breeze and seeing all these gulls and stuff flying over your head. Come on, all right? So apart from that, right, when you come to every ABC event, after you are blessed with a nice smile and how are you doing, what's your name, bam, bam, bam. It's a ticketed event, right?
Yeah.
So of course you have your ticket in your hand. That tangible ticket, the value is already there. Folks spend time to produce a beautiful ticket to you, which is a keepsake, as well as a tracker for all the games that you play. Okay. All right? And then, of course, once you come, you're going to be given a tangible gourmet gaming menu. So it's almost like a restaurant experience. We are speaking about hosting and we are trying to cater literally to your social needs, right? So you'll be given a gourmet gaming menu. And on this menu, there are different sections, right? So you have your party platters, right? We are trying to make it seem edible. I want you all to taste a board game after you leave, right? So you have your party platters. So those will be your party games with very, very high player counts. Some games are as high as 20 players, etc. And they are not just your normal games from long time. Those will be some new games that you don't even know how to play. But on our Above Board page on Instagram, I actually do a lot of ABC, a beginner's class, of a lot of those games. So even if you're not sure how to play it, you can just scroll the page, binge watch the content, and you're good to go. However, there are literal hosts, all of which are wearing an Above Board shirt.
Right.
On the night, who are going to take you through the games, right? So after you have your party platters, you have your local lunches. We are going to have some board games that are made locally, and the game creators are actually going to be there to take you through the game as well. You have your jumbo combos, those very, very big games, things like giant golf darts and stuff that could test your athleticism. You know, folks are very, very competitive, especially for the guys and stuff. So we have like the tabletop games, the very, very, very big games. We have the nostalgic nooks as well, for those who like a little Scrabble from long time, a little chess, a little drafts, Chinese checkers, and if you would also watch on our page, we love wooden stuff, because I find wood is very, very rustic, and of course it's very, very strong and durable.
Yep.
You know? And this is an ultra game night where every attendee is going to be assigned to a team from the jump. So as soon as you reach the booth, and because it's back to your roots, the 4 teams are named after edible roots, right? So you have Team Dashin, Team Cassava, Team Sweet Potato, and Team Ginger.
Yeah.
You understand? So everybody is going to be assigned to a team, and there are prizes for the person who plays the most games. So we really are trying to encourage as many games as possible. For the person who wins the most games, you have multiple door prizes as well. We even have an ABC and Above Board concert that is going to feature, I'm telling you, that's going to feature a local artist, Mr. Nathaniel Fisherman. If you don't know him, check him out. This man is fire and he's blessed, right? And he has the whole, you know, like the whole vibe.
Trust me, I have him on my Spotify.
I'm telling you. He is amazing, right? And I could call him a friend as well. So he will be there to bless the crowd. So this is a packed event, guys. It's from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. on June the 14th. 6 hours of unimaginable fun. And even though you all may not see a program printed in your hand, you'll see a menu. The team has been informed about how we're going to do things. So like there's always an unseen structure. We love structure, because we find most times when you go to a Lime, the host doesn't have a structure. So all of the attendees have to kind of find a place of, is either you are being hosted well, or you are a hostage to a very uncomfortable situation. We want to make young and old comfortable.
Yeah. So I see there's a three ticket tier kind of.
A 3-tier, yes.
Yeah. So what is that? Explain that, and then give us the costing as well.
Sure. So because we are going to a venue that has its own attractions, right? We want folks to have the choice to either be fully ABC, fully Scallywag Bay, Rootyard, or both, right? So we have a 3-tier ticket system, and we have a traffic light system, right? It's a ABC original. So the first tier is the all access ticket, right? And every attendee will wear a green band on their hand, right? And green means go. So they have access to the above board championship, which is the ABC tournament. They have access to the above board concerts, and they also have food and drink, as well as access to the Hocha fun bikes. So at Scallywag Bay, there are these rickshaw bikes where you can kind of ride around a track around Scallywag Bay, right? And they also have access to the 18-hole mini golf, which takes about half an hour to run, but it's extremely fun. So they have access to the facilities at Rootyard as well as ABC. So that is the green all access. The cost of that ticket is $350, but up to Friday, the 23rd coming, midnight, it is going at $300. So all now, that ticket, the all access, is $300. So that's a $50 discount. So the second tier is the Amber Light, right? So this is the general ticket. So this will be what the attendees or patrons are used to from our other events, where they have full access to our ABC championship and concerts and food, but they will not have access to the facilities at Scallywag, be it the mini golf as well as the bikes. All right, and the last tier is what we call the who you're rooting for spectator ticket, right? Pun intended, right? Who you're rooting for spectator ticket. So this is a fixed price of $150. One thing I forgot to say, the general tier, the full price is $300, but up to Friday 23rd midnight is going for $250. All right, so also a $50 discount, right? So the who you're rooting for spectator tickets, that is that gives the person access to the Scallywag facilities, be it the mini golf and the rickshaw bikes, but they will only be able to spectate the ABC vibes. You know, some folks will be like, you know, they're not really into board games, but I still want to come and see what it is about. So the next time I'll go the full way, right?
Yeah.
So they can come and enjoy. They can even enjoy the above board concert, because all attendees on that night, even if they are not participating with ABC per se, you are still going to be there for the concert, right? So it means that on that night, the cheapest ticket of entry will be the spectator price of $150, right? So you have a $300 early bird for the green, which is the all access. You have a $250 early bird for the general, and that's yellow, and you have your red, who you're rooting for, spectator price of $150, and that's fixed before and after the early bird special.
Nice. Yeah, I think so. I just wanted to reiterate that. I know you said it, but for the red one, the clear rooting for pass, that you have access to all the amenities at Scallywag, except participating in the ABC.
ABC, but they can spectate but not participate.
Gotcha.
However, I must say that if, for example, folks are on the night and they want to upgrade their ticket, that facility is also available, right?
Okay.
So if they start off as a general and they want to go to all access, they could just pay the difference of $50 at the booth, and we'll upgrade their band, because don't forget, ABC assigned band colors, right? So you have your green and your red, and I must also say that those are the same shades of the Rastafarian flag, you know. So I had to kind of meet my bro at Scallywag midway, you know, and I'm sure he hasn't noticed that until I say it now, But I see these things, and I see that all these things are connected in some way. So once you could upgrade from a spectator to the access to the above board championship, etc., by paying an extra $100 on the night, you know. And the thing about the spectator, the food and drink is not included in that. They will have to go to the restaurant, which is on site, and they can buy the food at their own pleasure.
Okay. So where can we where do we get the tickets? Are they
right,
online?
So the above board, the above board number is 744-2028, and that is Mrs. Vice, my wife. All the tickets are already printed and stuff. So once folks confirm to us where they are, we could either arrange to meet them within 2 to 3 days of them purchasing the ticket. You get it in your hand. Or if you prefer, if you're living real far, you can always have it at the door. Your name and stuff will be reserved on your ticket. You're inside. And we have a spreadsheet with all of those who have paid already and stuff, so we know exactly who is coming, etc. So it's either we meet you up and we give it to you in your hand, and everyone will have their own envelope with the above board seal. Like we pay a lot of detail in intentionality, you know, so folks really feel that they were thought of and prepared for now. This is not just you're going to come for a line. This is not a line. This is an event. I wouldn't say a once in a lifetime event because we want you all to come several times, right? But it is a very, very different. I'm trying to do something a bit differently. You feel like, wow, boy, I've come to a show, I've come to a restaurant, I've come to something bigger than me.
Yes, and just have the time of your life.
All right, so just to
that
reiterate,
is right, that's right.
The contact number is 744-2028.
744-2028. I'll say that again, 744-2028.
And if you want to just check out the web, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, or they could message us on Instagram and we could organize from there as well.
All right. So the website is aboveboardcompany.org. If you want to go check out other stuff that they do, the kind of games that you guys have, you can go to their website. Again, that's aboveboard, www.aboveboard.org.
That's right, that's right. And we do a lot more things than just these big game events, right? We host for home line, so we call that ABC. Above board celebrations. We've done several team builders thus far. We call that ABC, above board corporate, above board corporate.
Okay.
If somebody wants to get married, ABC,
above board
a bride's
ceremony.
choice.
I was going to say ceremony.
Exactly. I love that. Well done. I should hire you. But we call that a bride's choice because the bride can choose to entertain her crowd anyway, but she chose us, you know, and it's really a different experience. We've had a successful one in January of this year. It was amazing. You could also see the details of that one on our page as well, a bride's choice. So we do a lot of things, guys. If you have a baby shower, ABC, a baby's coming.
I love that. I love that. I can just it just keeps coming. It just keeps
going.
Dr. Goka, thank you so much for joining us today and telling us so much about the Above Board Company. I enjoyed learning about the company.
Yes.
I love that we're doing something like this in Trinidad. I have to say, I love it. I love it. I love it. Thanks so much for taking up this initiative.
And thanks so much for having me, guys. I had so much fun.
Of course.
And I hope to see you all there too, eh?
You probably will. You probably will.
Nice one. Nice.
I'll bring my whole team because we love games. And my friends and I, we are like, and I'm telling you, we get down. I say a games night. I cannot miss a games night. Love games.
Friends out. So I'm going to see you there.
Yeah.
I'll spend
and you as well. Nice one. It's lovely.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again for coming on the program.
Same to you guys. Let's go.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
So we're just going to take a short break and we'll be right back with you. We're keeping on trend with embracing local culture and promoting local businesses. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
I try my best, guys. It was fun.
Her voice has mesmerized us for years.
And now, in a rare treat for music fans,
Shakuntala and Friends in concert, featuring Shakuntala Jang Bahadur. Singing sensation Nepal Chaitlal, brilliant musician Dr. Shivanan Maharaj, master flautist and saxophonist Narendra Maharaj, with music from Shiv Sangeet Orchestra, Shakuntala and Friends in concert.
Shakuntala.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
Claudette, radiographer at the radiology departments at the community hospital. We offer high-quality service with state-of-the-art equipment in X-ray, ultrasound, CT, and mammogram. Come, our friendly staff awaits you.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title, it's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada in spite of the obvious difference in size.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
And it's, nah, you don't need to register nothing. You don't need, we can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
Welcome back to the program this morning. So as Jada said, we are staying on trend with local,
highlighting local business efforts.
Yes.
So now we'll be jumping into the world of publishing. So with the owner and founder of One Momentum Publishing, Mr. Daniel Francis. He is an author himself of 3 books, The Millennial Mind and The Millennial Experience, and newly added How to Write and Self-Publish Your Book as an Aspiring Caribbean Author. So he would have opened up himself and lent his talents to now other Caribbean authors and those wanting to take that step from writing and into writing and getting their own book published. But Daniel gives it to you a little bit differently. He focuses on the skill of self-publishing and hybrid publishing. So today we're talking a bit more about that versus traditional publishing. So good morning and welcome to the program, Mr. Francis.
Good morning, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Yes.
So tell us, I know it's pretty early, but you are an early riser.
Yeah, I live in deep Santa Cruz, you have no choice. You have to wake up like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. because the traffic starts
One
about
way
6.
in, one way out. Well,
Yeah, well, two ways, but
yeah.
I mean, one way kind of longer than the other. So yeah, I'm accustomed.
I don't know how Trinidadians do that. You know, like the Marval and the St. Anne's is one way in, one way. I will lose my mom.
When you start young, you just get accustomed to it.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to be an early riser now because it helps me out in all the ways. Yeah.
So tell us, what is self-publishing?
So self-publishing is essentially when, let's say you've written a book, it's called a manuscript. You decide, you know what, I want to put this book out to the world and I want to do all the work. So the steps within putting the book out there is editing, you format the book, you get an international standard book number. It's basically like the fingerprint for your book. You get the book cover, and then you publish it, whether it's on Amazon, these different profiles, and then you have like a book launch so that people can know about it. When you self-publish, you decide, I'm going to organize all this. I'm going to find my editor. I'm going to be like a project manager and manage the steps in between. That's self-publishing. Most people are accustomed to traditional publishing, where you basically just pitch your book to different companies.
So, okay, so as a person who wants to self-publish, what even makes you think, I want to do that? I want to take in that work for myself
Why
instead
is
of
it
giving it away?
better than the traditional?
Well, one, it's easier to self-publish now than it's ever been.
Okay.
There's so much information out there just teaching you how to do it yourself. The second thing is it's pretty difficult to get in the traditional publishing route because I've known persons who would have sent their manuscript to hundreds of publishers and they wouldn't get through. You know, so sometimes that deters people. But also, even if you get through, sometimes the proposal that they set forward isn't to your liking because they can, basically when you go through that route, they more or less have the rights for your book. So they can decide when they publish it, how they publish it. There's a royalties agreement. So when books are sold, you get a certain amount. But on the other side, they're now taking on all the cost of editing, book cover design, marketing the book, and these traditional publishing houses tend to be more established. So they have all the different routes for marketing and they know what works and what may not work. But you just don't have as much control over your work as you might like. So for me, when I self-publish, and for authors I've seen who self-publish, they just want to have a bit more control over their book. Yeah.
So what, I know you have OM, Momentum Publishing.
Yeah, One Momentum Publishing.
Right. So what did you see, like, in terms of doing that and then self-publishing? I know, well, I'm assuming you would have wanted to bridge some type of gap, right?
Sure.
Let's talk about that. What is the gap that you wanted to bridge?
Honestly, the gap is just, I don't want any perspective on new author to go through what I went through with my first book.
Okay.
Because when I had the idea for my first book, I wrote it, but I had no idea what to do next. You know, I'm figuring it out as I go. So throughout that experience, I found that the information on it was very hard to come by. A lot of it was just UK-based, American-based, but I'm asking myself, where's the Caribbean-based information? Something as simple as, okay, I've published my book on Amazon. How do I get paid? How do I get paid? I'm seeing the option that they send you a check, but there must be an alternative way because I want to get the money in my account. So I'm going through this process and I'm realizing, wow, there's a lot of niche information that you need to know. And it's not just generally out there. So from that first book, so said so done, a lot of authors or new authors came to me and said, hey, I saw your first book, The Millennial Mind. How did you do this? How did you do that? How do you do this? And it was so overwhelming that I started doing free webinars just to educate people because, again, I went through something that was really difficult. And I don't want anybody else to go through it in the same way. And that just evolved into, okay, there's a need here. Persons want to know this information that's niche to us. And from that, the company was born. Because at the same time, you meet people where they're at. Some people just want the information and they self-publish themselves. Some people want the information, but they want you to do everything for them. And I guess, you know, I built up a certain level of trust with persons because, again, you're doing webinars for about 2 years, just educating people. And they started to say, okay, you know, I believe that this guy can help me get from point A to point B being published.
So even on that, is it different working with an author who has come to you as soon as they've written their book, or an author who has gone to all of the traditional publishing houses and they've been turned down many other times? That would make a person feel less confident, and then they come to you afterwards. So is there a difference between the types of authors that you work with?
Yeah, I mean, the authors coming off forms, ages. Like I have published for as young as, I don't even know, maybe like 7, 6.
Wow.
Yeah, they're doing kids' books. Because again, once you have the idea and the parents sees it, they're like, they can run with it, you know, and as old as maybe like 80, you know, there's never really an age to not publish. I think what I see more often than not is, again, for those who would have tried the traditional publishing route and they didn't get through the way they wanted to, they just want to put their work out there. There's a part of them that just wants it there because, again, when you put that work into writing a book, it's a lot of work, and you really just, it's like it becomes your baby, and you just want to see your baby do its best, right? Yeah, to flourish. So they basically just want to get that out there. But then on the other end, there are those who have trusted in different outlets that just fail them. You know, I've had persons who went to publishers disappear with their money, didn't do any work, and they come in jaded. So they come in with a million questions for me, and I understand because you've been wronged.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, you still want to get to that final result.
Yeah,
so you work with all these different people. So what makes somebody the best type of candidate for One Memento Publishing?
I mean, again, I try to meet people where they're at because there are those who will come, Daniel, I've written my book, I don't know what to do next. Cool, I can give you the steps. Because my main thing is, it's not even so much about working with me necessarily, it's more about getting the information and making the best decision for you.
Okay.
Because if I'm not the best decision for you, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Right? So I've had those who've come, they've written their book, they say, hey, I don't know what to do next, but I'm willing to put in the work. Then I'll say, all right, cool, this is the information. Go do your thing. While you're doing your thing, if you have any problems, just ask me. I've had persons come and said, hey, I wrote this book, I don't want to do any work. And I say, oh, great. You know, we have all these services, we'll organize it, and I already know how to talk to you to keep you updated so you feel safe, secure, and things are going, you know, on track.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about getting published?
Biggest misconceptions? Oh, gosh. People say that a book is a passive form of income. Now, I hear that, but I think there's a misconception that a book is still a product, like any other product. So if you don't market this product, if you don't tell people about this product, it's not going to sell, right? You know, the statistics are that most first-time authors might sell between 200 to 250 copies of their book in the first year. And that's honestly because they're approaching it as though I'm a creative. I put this work out into the world and it will just do well. But that's not how it works. You know, one of the biggest mistakes you can make as a new author is that you put that book out there and you don't do a book launch. That book launch is that opportunity for the world to be like, hey everybody, this is my book. I'm introducing it to you. You share that moment with your friends, your families, anybody that's interested, and they share it out to the world.
Yeah, and I think that's your time to sell the book.
Yeah,
like,
that's
at the book launch, you sell.
You have that new excitement.
Yeah, listen, a little hack for new authors. When you have that book launch, you basically are setting up pre-orders, you know.
Yeah.
So you already know, okay, on this day, I have persons who are attending, and about 50 of them already coming to purchase a book. You could collect that cash beforehand and use that in preparation for the event itself. There's so many different ways to do things. But again, I find a lot of authors are just on the creative end. They may not be necessarily on the business side of things.
Yeah.
So they get lost in, wow, this is a lot more work than I thought, and I'm not reaping the rewards I expected. But you really have to find a balance because you need to look at it as a product because that's what it is.
Yeah. So you said you have all these services. So for a person who just wants to set it and forget it, would you help them with that as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, once the book is published on Amazon, I basically give them guidance on, okay, where are you at right now and how do you want this to play out, and that's kind of how I guide them. So for example, if they say, you know, this is just a passion project, I put it on and they say I want to get like 10 copies, I guide them on the best way to get those 10 copies. There are some who are very aggressive and they say, listen, this book is part of my business. It's a product in my business ecosystem. Once it's out, I want to go hard. I say, great, tell me your budget, tell me your goals, and then I help them plan the book launch. I tell them, hey, if you have multiple books, this is a good schedule to get them out there because everybody's different. So you have to, again, you have to meet them where they are and then give them the best plan based on where they are going. Yeah.
You have to learn a lot of people's skills to do that.
Well, the way my life is set up, it kind of worked out because you know, I started as a leadership development coach. You throw in events, you're talking to people all the time, and you know, I it's weird. I don't really see myself as a creative in its pure sense because I write self-help books. So I'm speaking to my experience and trying to use relatable facts and then practical advice to help persons, again, get to point A to point B. So my approach to all of this is more, hey, this is my usual. I'm helping somebody, but I'm helping them in a different way. Or I'm adding this to my business ecosystem, but it's just a different way.
But you are creative using a creative outlet.
Yeah. I
think you have to be creative to write a book.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
You see, it's different because there are different types of books. You have non-fiction, which is what I mainly do, which is the self-help, and you might do memoirs and these kind of things. When you go into the fiction realm, listen, and fairies and
so you can write
I have not been able to get into that just yet.
Would you?
Of course. I think for me it's more about like experience.
Yeah.
I honestly can say I have not read enough fiction books and novels.
Yes.
But I know once I start getting into it, how the brain works, you just start to connect things that you would have never connected. Because when I wrote my first book, I didn't have any plans for any other books. But as soon as I was done with that book, the ideas just started flowing because the unknown was the issue. But once you've gone past the unknown and you see what's there, you start to kind of connect the dots and, you know, I did this, I could do this next time. And, you know, this idea could flow like that. And it just...
Yeah, and I think the process becomes easier having done it once already. Your mind just knows
because you have the confidence,
how to flow,
Yeah.
But I want to ask about ebooks, right? So publishing online versus publishing hard
Physical.
copy, yeah.
Everybody is also different in the way that they want to intake information. So I always tell persons, meet them in all the different ways. I say that knowing that I haven't even put out the audiobooks or any of my books yet. But, you know, Amazon has, on all these platforms like Amazon, they're great in that you can put a paperback. You can do hardcover, you can do ebook, you can do audiobook. So that when somebody is looking to get your book, they can get it in all the different formats that fit them. Even just doing ebook was a lot of research on my end initially because you don't think about it until it's time to do it. So I put on the paperback and I say, hey, there's an ebook option. I have no idea what this is. You know, I don't know how to do this, but it's all about learning process. And one of the ways that I've helped to kind of share information is that I started a group. It's on WhatsApp and Facebook where I just have authors in there, prospective authors, and it solved the problem of information scarcity. So now when somebody comes in there, they can ask their questions, I can answer it. But also there's a host of other authors who've also gone through the same thing and become a community. It's so nice. They just share information, they help each other, you know, they bounce off creative ideas. And again, it's all just to fight what I was going through in the past where I just didn't know what to do, didn't have a community, that kind
Is
of
that
thing.
the Authors Village?
Yeah, that's the Caribbean Author Village. So that would have been birthed when I did the first author conference last year, you know, because I didn't just want to do an event and educate persons and then create a space for them to sell their books. I wanted to have something sustainable where it is, okay, we are still a group that can help each other, you know, so they share opportunities in there, we share resources. Every time there's a new update on, let's say, Amazon or anything booksellery, they put it in there. And I'm so grateful for those in our group.
Yeah. There's a, I don't know if either of y'all would remember this or know this, but I remember growing up, there was something called Wattpad. And, and Wattpad was a website that allowed, it was for authors or young authors, right? So it would be a lot of, at the time, I think most of the authors on Wattpad would be teenagers. And we would write, it's a community that would write these books about these
things, usually fantasy,
love stories, just different types of books. But it was so popular, and this, I don't know why this has me thinking about it, because on Wattpad you can write your book. Anybody can become an author on Wattpad. Once you join, you can read books, write books. I remember I wrote books on Wattpad as well, and then you, in the community, people can follow you. It was kind of like a very social,
Sounds like a Facebook.
because you can chat with people, you can when you write your book, you publish it on Wattpad, but it's only on Wattpad. It's a Wattpad exclusive. You can't find the book anywhere else. And the people in the community read your book. They can like your book. They can share your book within the community, comment on your book, and then and to me that, like I'm remembering that as it's a form of publishing, right? But it's specific to that community. I don't know what are your thoughts on something like that?
Pages and apps just like that.
Yeah.
Where persons, but mostly persons will use it to kind of test out.
Right, because there's no income that you can get from that.
Yeah, but the feedback alone is a lot, because you can get that feedback, make changes, and then produce a really, really great book that you know for sure, hey, I've tested this. This is, I've read it. They've given me feedback. I've made changes, and they like it.
Yeah.
You know, and that confidence alone is a lot, because one thing they don't tell you about the writing process, when you're writing, the fear of criticism or who am I to write this, it can be crippling, and it stops a lot of persons from finishing their book or even just putting it out there.
I think one thing what Wattpad did allow is you can update chapter by chapter.
Yes.
So there was this book I really liked. It was about dragons. Guys, I was like 14. Give me give me peace. But it was about dragons, and every other week or so the author would update, and she'd be like, oh, sorry guys, I just came home from school, but this is what I wrote. And
it would literally have things like that. And the certain books, like you would read, it would be like mini books. So you will get like 8 chapters, and then the author would say, you know, the next 8 chapters are coming in a month or 2 months. So then you'll, you know, put a notification bell or something, and to be notified when the rest of the book comes out. So, yeah, it was a very fun. That time was. I don't know if Wattpad is still around. It is, but it's definitely this generation is not gonna.
It's ad-ridden right now. Yeah, but can you
But-
see Authors Village becoming something like that?
For me, I guess my vision for the Author Village is just whatever they need, whatever the need is, I just help facilitate it.
Yeah.
You know, it started with the conference. So part of the conference would have been, hey guys, I'm giving you a free space to sell your book. Because one of the major issues for authors is they don't know how to promote their book, or they're not promoting it well enough, and they don't often get an avenue to sell their book. So I try to do those events. Now I'm going to keep them in the author villages and the conferences. But anything they need, I really just try to facilitate it. You know, we have resources in there where we talk about how you get into bookstores, a listing of different bookstores, how you reach out to them, different resources. Like that same site, we have just a bunch of different sites.
Nice.
You know, even though I am a publisher, we still have a resource where it says, okay, if you want to go through and do different things, editor information, book cover artist information, so that you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to be an ecosystem. I'm not supposed to be policing that ecosystem.
Daniel, what if somebody comes to you and their book is not that well written? What do you do?
That is what an editor is for. That is what an editor is for. Listen,
So all books can be saved?
all books can be saved, of course, of course.
Yes.
When you first send your manuscript, let's say you're a first-time author, the first type of editing we do is called developmental. It's like a teacher going through your work, and they look for structural changes, and it's usually a very detailed report that you get that tells you, hey, you need to change this on page 97, you need to give more details here. This didn't make sense, maybe try this. And then you try again, and then when you bring it back, then you get into regular editing.
Do you provide that service?
Yeah, all of that is within the editing. You
Okay.
know? So each book is a bit different. Some people need it, some people don't.
Yeah. So what about an author who already has a book, right? Let's say, you know, the book didn't sell very well.
Right.
Can they still come to you hoping to revamp the book and maybe relaunch it? And
We get those all the time.
Okay.
You know, at the end of the day, marketing.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't know the proper approaches, so we have book marketing services, whether we just give you a consult, whether we give you a very detailed plan of what you can do for yourself, whether we're doing the content, planning the book launch, giving you, you know, advice on when you should launch, why you should launch on this day, how you should launch. You know, we just try to meet persons where they're at. You know, but and the thing is too, it's also about changing their mindset, because you can come to me and not know what's the best avenue for you. You might say, I just want to do one book. The strategy for if you're doing one book versus multiple different books is very different. The strategy if you're doing a self-help book versus a kid's book versus a novel, very different. So I really need to see what are you coming with and where are you trying to go, and that can help direct you. because the biggest thing for them is perspective. They haven't gone through it before, or they've had a bad experience. So it's to let them know, okay, this is what you can expect given this level of effort, this level of investment.
Yeah.
Right? Because that alone can give them a bit of, okay, I understand now what's best I can do here.
So I kind of want to get into the why, like go a little bit more personal, because you would have said in the beginning that you had to kind of get all this niche information, and you chose to take it upon yourself to put it out there for people.
Right.
Why lend your talents like that?
I think, you know, when I did the first book, I read another book from a guy, his name was Daniel as well, Priestley from Australia, and the way he described business and information and services, it really spoke to, I feel like, the direction I was going with how I operate. Because I feel like in Trinidad, and maybe it's the Caribbean, we have this thing where when we get information, we just want to hold on to it. And we don't want to share it because we're afraid that, exactly, gatekeep, because we feel like, okay, if I share this with others, they're going to do what I'm doing. They're going to do better, and it's going to affect me. When you go everywhere else, the States, UK, all over the world, it's not like that. People are excited to share information with you. They're excited to help you.
There's a space for everybody.
Yeah, because when I look at the different publishers in my group, I'm not mad. I don't feel like it's competition, because at the same time, the people I know, not the people you know.
Yeah.
The people that will trust me and not the people that will trust you. I might meet somebody who wants my services and realize, you know, we're not a good fit. Here are these other 3 publishers. And
my talent is not yours.
yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, people are people. They're going to want to do things the way they want to do things. If someone comes to me and they want to self-publish, there's nothing I can tell them that's going to make them want to pay for my services. That's just a fact. So why would I now not give them the information they need to go do it themselves? And it ends up being very short-minded, because when I share this information, when I create these ecosystems, when I help these persons, at the end of the day, you know, even if they don't need me or they don't need my services, they might have someone in their life who might say, you know, I need this, and they can't provide it to them, and they will send them my way.
Yeah.
You know, we just want to hoard and gatekeep, and we don't understand the adverse effect it's not only having on other persons, but on yourself.
Yeah.
And my thing is, again, you meet people where they are, and you provide in the way that they need to be provided to. It will work out. Yeah.
So your most recent book, right?
Yes.
You have it here with you. Can we talk quickly
about this? Yeah, so I mean, the main purpose of the goal, I mean, the book is just very worded specifically on what it is, you know, how to write and self-publish a book as an aspiring Caribbean author. It's really an amalgamation of all the information that I would have learned when I published my first and second book. You know, as I said, I did webinars for 2 years, just giving out information. And I said, I mean, I write a book, let me write a book on this, because I think it's important for persons to have a guide. Again, I didn't have a guide specific to here. So the information really speaks to all the different things, the editor, the format, the book cover, what to look out for, the little things to look out on Amazon when it comes to publishing as a Caribbean author. And it's really meant to say, hey, if I want to self-publish and I'm looking for information, then this book is one of those things that are going to help you
I
get
must
there.
say I absolutely love the cover.
Listen
oh
to
my
me.
gosh, it is beautiful.
I am usually very chill about my covers.
Yeah.
This cover,
Yeah.
I was fighting for months.
Yeah.
You know, and when the book cover artist got it right, he got it.
Yeah, you know, it is
He got it
amazing. I
right.
love
Yeah.
the beach, the books on the
Yeah.
beach.
It's telling you Caribbean.
Oh my
and that's
God.
what I really wanted to do.
I want to be on that beach right
You
now.
want to be on the
With
beach?
one of those books, just like, that's the best thing, you know, to be on the beach
Yeah.
and reading a book
Yeah.
after you just came out the water, you take a little chillax. The best feeling.
It's just missing a little hammock, and it would have been perfect for me.
So who was the artist that did
So
that?
I switched around some. It actually is an amalgamation of different artists, because one person started it, and I said, all right, we're taking this template, and another one did a part, and I'm just looking at the different parts, and I say, you know what, let me stop being difficult. And I let one person say, hey, I like these 3 concepts, just please make it work. And you did a good job.
Yeah.
You know, because you can actually find book cover artists all over. You know, the ones from my company, they're local, but there are ones on sites like Fiverr.com, those sites where you can just hire persons to do things. It all works.
And I think you could go on Canva too, and Canva creates.
Yeah, Canva, again, like I said, self-publishing is easier now than it's ever been.
Yep.
You can go on Canva and say, this is the dimensions of my book, and Canva has the templates already.
Give a quick description of what you have in mind, and
you
Canva
just create.
creates it.
We even talk about AI, but the thing with the AI is that sometimes they will take from works that already exist. So unless you're paying for the rights for that, you have to be very careful. But even that works. Yeah.
So how does someone get in touch with you to learn more about your services?
Right. So, I mean, the name of the company is One Momentum Publishing. So if you go on Instagram, it's o.m.publishing. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, One Momentum Publishing. You can even search me, Daniel Francis. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of them. Right? Even our website, so it's ompublishing.org. Thing is, we try to facilitate persons in whatever way that they're trying to meet us. So whether it is they just want information, we give them the information, we send them to the group. If it is they want content, so the thing about the content we put out, it's just education. We're telling you what to do, how to do it, what to look out for, in the same way that I would have gone through different things. I'm going to pull out the phone number, it's a shame I don't even know the number offhand, that business phone, I only want to touch it. But yeah. So you can also reach out to us. The number is 495-2964. So that's the business phone. So people usually just WhatsApp us. They say what their problem is. We tend to add them to the group. We tend to send them to the website. Most want to have like a conversation. I'll do a little free discovery call with them just to give them some guidance on what they're trying to do.
Where can we find your book?
Book is everywhere. So I'm real proud because this year we started a service called Bookstore Facilitation. So basically, we help persons get their books into different stores. Obviously, I would have used it for myself. So it's an RIK, Nigel Arcan, paper-based bookstore. We're in Scribbles and Quill, Metropolitan Bookstore. It's all over the place. So basically most major books are
Can we also get it on Amazon?
You can also get it on Amazon as a paperback and as an ebook.
Okay. Guys, look how beautiful that is.
It is,
I'm so proud of this cover. Shout out to my book of artists who did everything.
So before we close off, we do have to wrap now, but can you just leave a message with our viewers? Somebody who possibly has a manuscript tucked away somewhere, or they just have an idea. Give them some advice on just to get started.
I would say if you have not written your book yet, just spend 20 minutes a day writing. I did 20 minutes a day. I was probably done with my book in 2 to 3 months. That's just put the content out there. Once your book is done, educate yourself. Figure out what is the best avenue for you, whether it's traditional publishing, self-publishing, coming to a hybrid publisher like us. Figure out what is the best route for your book to become a reality. But what I would say is don't sleep on it. Don't make sure to put a date to when you want to get your book out there. The biggest thing I see with authors is they have the book or they have the idea and they don't put an end date to it. So the book is constantly being written. The book is just constantly there and not put out there. And of course, you have me as a guide if you need it. I can share the feedback on what you need to know, what you need to do. And again, we have our group. So if you want that encouragement, trust me, there's no end to encouragement in that group.
And you can find them, OM Publishing, essentially everywhere, o.m.publishing on socials, ompublishing.org as the website. And if you are a WhatsApp person or you just want to have a little human contact by calling, you can call 495-2964, 495-2964. So get in contact today if you just have that, as you said, manuscript tucked away somewhere for ages. Get it out there. Yeah?
I think I'm speaking to myself. The message was for me.
Your book is meant to be seen. Meant to be seen. As you said, any book, any idea can become a book.
Yeah, and I said, like, people create books in all different ways. As I was saying off camera, I had someone who wrote a book. Their book was articles that they had written. They compile them together, and that became a book. There's so many different ways that you can do this. Don't think that, okay, I need to sit down and write, and that's the conventional way. There's so many different ways that you can do this.
It could be a picture book, even.
Yeah. Kids' book is one of the, well, I won't say the easiest, but the less stressful ways, because you just write the words that will go in there. And it could be 15, 20
Yeah.
sentences.
Yeah.
And then the hard part is just the illustrations. You know, one sentence might go on one page, and that one sentence creates that illustration.
Yeah.
So it's just working with the illustrator to then figure out how it's done. We even offer that as a service.
Yeah,
Kids
guys,
books up
even Kim Kardashian, she did a book, it was a picture book of herself. It was just selfies.
Oh my goodness.
The entire book was
Anything
just
is
selfies
possible.
of herself.
Anything is possible.
And it was published.
Yeah. Anything can be a book, yeah?
And I mean, even persons who struggle with writing, ghostwriting is even an option. You know, having that book written based on your ideas and your guidance, there's really an outlet for anybody.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on to AM
Of
Prime.
course, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I had fun here, guys.
Yes.
I'm looking out for books from both of you.
I don't know, you got me. I don't know, because I used to love writing, but I don't know if I would do a book. That sounds way too tedious.
That's what we're looking at here then.
Yeah. No, it will come. It will come maybe 5 years.
Author Naomi. Naomi McNeil.
Naomi McNeil, yeah.
All right, so again, thanks for coming on to AM Prime. It was beautiful speaking with you. So this was Daniel Francis, the CEO of One Momentum Publishing. So stay with us. We have Wild Wednesday coming right up for you. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Her voice has mesmerized us for years.
And now, in a rare treat for music fans,
Shakuntala and Friends in concert, featuring Shakuntala Jangbahadur. Singing sensation Nepal Chaitlal, brilliant musician Dr. Shivanan Maharaj, master flautist and saxophonist Narendra Maharaj, with music from Shiv Sangeet Orchestra, Shakuntala and Friends in concert.
Shakuntala.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private healthcare affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond
wanna-
to me.
respond to you?
How you would respond to me.
The first question I would ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. As you know, it is Wild Wednesday. As always, we have Mr. Ricardo Mead on the program with us from the El Socorro Wildlife for Conservation. Wildlife Center for Conservation. It's a Center for Wildlife Conservation. The El Socorro Center for Wildlife Conservation.
Yep.
They do a lot of important work, and you know he comes onto the program every week to educate us about various animals that he has in the center.
So remember, at the start of the show, we said Mr. Mead does not tell us the animal that he's bringing beforehand. Yes. So it's always a surprise. We're just as surprised as you. So this morning on the program, right, we have a special guest, a guest that I think we all know in Trinidad and Tobago, very common. Some might say it's delicious.
Please don't say that. Please don't say that.
Some might say it's not delicious.
Some might say it's cute. Some might say it's not.
Some might say it's a rat.
But
that's a big hint.
Yeah. Today we're here to find out what it is. All right. So, Mr. Mead.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
I think we pushed a number of buttons.
Oh yeah,
right there.
yeah. You just got on that keyboard and was just like hopping around like a cat on someone's desk. You know, a lot has come up in that short intro. But good morning to you, ladies, and good morning to our friends, followers, and all the people out there on the World Wide Web. Welcome again to another Wild Wednesday. And our wild is quite wild, but not so wild, because it's actually one of the more common animals that we like to talk about in Trinidad and Tobago. And in so doing, we tell a lot of lies. You see, in Trinidad, we have a lot of history from the Welsh, and they have a tradition of storytelling, aka twisting, abbreviating, or sometimes exaggerating the truth. So, you know, thermological inexactitude or something like that. yeah, we specialize in that. And that is applied to so much. And once we've dived into the animal kingdom, we realize, oh my gosh, It really is so. There is really so much untruths, fibs, lies with regards to the animals and stuff like that. Myths, and then now, being perpetuated so long, we have accepted as that is the way it is, and that's like the rule. But that's not true. You know, in a lot of cases, in a lot of situations. So that's why I enjoy being on the program, because the misinformation is out there. We've established it as a cultural thing, and now I come here with a little hammer and chipping away. There's no sledgehammer because you ain't breaking that down so easy. But a little hammer and chipping away at those myths to reveal the beauty and the truth, because that's what the truth is. The truth, even though sometimes harsh, there's a beauty to it, because it's unadulterated. It is what it is, what it is. You can't twist it, you can't twist it. Twist it to your mind, to your followers, but the truth will remain. And so we deal with wildlife, and wherein people do not know stuff, where knowledge is lacking, you often find people coming to fill in that void. But instead of with truth, they fill in with, I hear that, and they tell me so, and she say this and say that. That's why, you know, when you go in court and you talk, they say, hearsay. Okay, come correct or don't come at all. So it's the same thing with the animals. Come correct or don't come at all. So ladies and gentlemen, I think I have to get rid of this cover, because I think the cover, I just realized the cover is the forbidden color for television, which is green. Green. So instead of people's televisions and screens and monitors going crazy, I'm going to try to get the cover off without breaking it up. I broke up the last one when I tried. But let's see. This is supposed to be simple, but because I'm...
You don't need to.
It will work. Let's see how it will work like that. This is the black-eared opossum, a.k.a. manikou. Right? We like to use that word manikou. It's a manikou, okay? And you use it to disparage, you know, in a bad way, okay? Firstly and foremostly, this is not a rat. It is not even really a rat-like creature, to tell you the truth, okay? It is a marsupial. Do we know marsupials? I know people out there know marsupials. I know you ladies know marsupials, right? Give me an example of marsupial.
If I say squirrel, would you like
a possum?
Yes, I will.
Okay. A possum.
Well, this is an opossum. Nice try. Okay, from the land down under, most of the mammals are marsupials. What is the land down under?
Australia.
Australia, yeah. So most of their mammals are marsupials.
Okay, so kangaroo is a marsupial.
Kangaroo, because the joey emerges and it goes into the pouch. Correct. Exactly the same as this animal.
Oh, they have a pouch?
They have a pouch, of course. The joey, they are born. So sometimes people call us and say, I think they're newborn, they're tiny. And we see them at 6, 7, sometimes 9 grams. When they're born, they're probably less than a gram.
Wow.
They are tiny. They literally crawl out of the mother's exterior reproductive organ and hold on to the fur. You know, it's like a little fly, like a house fly, and crawl into the pouch. And then hold on to a teeth or nipple, and from constant suckling there now, they develop.
Yeah.
So by the time you see them at 9 grams, like that size, they're already a month old.
Wow.
So when these people see them and they're pink, they look newborn. I'm like, oh, they're newborn, they're just born. I'm like, nope.
Hey, he's not new to this, it's true to this.
Right? Yeah. So these are marsupials. They are not rats or rat family. Rats are in the family Rodentia.
Yeah.
Rodents, Rodentia. So in that family you have rats and guti and lap and capybara. All those are rodents. Rodents also have teeth like that.
Yes.
Okay. This guy's teeth, in fact, they have more teeth than any other land mammal in the Americas. I think they have about 58 teeth.
Yeah.
Okay, and their teeth are arranged like a dog teeth, you know, with the canines and the incisors and the molars, just like that. So they have nothing to do with any rat at all. Except they like to eat rats.
The similarity with the rodents come in because of the long tail, as well as the shape of the body.
Okay. All right, you can see that. So let me get him out. Is he? Yeah, it's a boy. You know, he's got his early danglers there, not dangling as much, but they're there. So he's a little boy. Now he's going to be a bit scared, and that is actually a good thing. He doesn't like me, and we are preparing him because he is ready for release. So by next week, he is out in the wild somewhere, hopefully avoiding the Trinis who want to add him to a pot or something like that, or just kill him because he is there. So this little guy, I'm careful now, I have to be careful that he doesn't bite me because we actually raised him to hate us. So a lot of times when we're releasing them, the very last thing this animal will do is turn around and bite us.
Yeah.
It's like, thank you, you raised me, you fed me, you got me ready for the wild, hold on to a bite. So they sometimes will literally, so let me just slip my fingers around his head there.
Can this bite harm us in any way?
Not at all. Well, it's a bite, so if it breaks your skin, it's going to hurt. Even if it just clamps pressure, it's going to hurt a bit. But no, this animal is, it's amazing. It is amazing. So it is an opossum. You say, well, it looks like an opossum in America. America is the Virginia opossum, and this is our local neotropical one. So this is the black-eared opossum, mainly because the ears are black, black-eared opossum.
One thing I noticed, it looks very similar to a bat. The
well,
ears and the shape of the face and
almost the texture of the ears look like that,
Yeah, well, the texture of the ears gives you that feel of the wings of a bat, which is actually skin. So I guess a bat wing will be the same, you know, but it does have bones in there, and you know, he doesn't have bones in there; it'll just be cartilage. But the bat would have bones.
A bat must be flimsy.
Bats, no. Bats are straight up regular mammals. They give birth and then they suckle their young and everything.
His ears almost look like leather.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like thin leather.
Yeah, when you don't have the fur and so on in there, that's what you kind of get on it there. So it is that sort of feel in it.
Yeah.
And these creatures are amazing. Firstly, like people say, well, sadly, they are listed as vermin in the Conservation of Wildlife Act. Yes, they're listed as vermin. So what that means is that you are allowed to kill them year-round without a permit. We are fighting against that because people have noticed, you know, I mean, as much as they like to eat them, people saying, you're not seeing as many as you've seen before. Well, if you let Trinis kill everything all the time, there'll be a time when there will be no more left. So this vital creature, who is a cleanup artist, he is for pest control, their numbers are being reduced. So we are fighting, we rehab just day before yesterday, which will be Monday. Monday we intook 12. Because a mother can have sometimes as many as 11 babies in a pouch. On Monday, we had 2 incidents of dog attack and 1 possible cat attack. So we took in all those babies and different stages of their life cycle and so on like that there. So we're hopeful. Last year, we released over 150 babies back into the wild. So they would have come in at small stages, different stages, and we'd have nursed them. We have our specialists now. We have brought in specials, fine tube, feeding tubes, very tiny, because for the babies to be fed, the tube has to go past their mouths, past their throat, down into their stomach. And we have to introduce a special formula, which we formulate now, and we feed them that until they go on to the next level of formula and so on, and then they go to solids, and then they go out in the outdoor preconditioning cage, which preconditions them for release, and they get a chance to climb about. So now when they're outside, you don't see them at all during the day. We feed them late in the evening, and at night they come out. That's when they've now adopted their nocturnal natural instincts.
So that's interesting. But can you move the container or the frame a bit? But I wanted to ask, you know, those big beady eyes, I don't know if y'all can see, but the Manikou has these huge eyes sticking out. It looks like
Here we go.
black beads. Almost as if he doesn't have any eyelids. Does he have eyelids?
Well, they do close their eyes, eh?
Okay.
His eyes are popping because he's like, I'm scared, what the hell are these people doing around me here?
So I'm guessing that's because he's nocturnal.
He's nocturnal,
so,
so he's, you know, sleep all day and get up 6 o'clock and run and roam.
So he basically has night vision.
They walk up to 5 kilometers per night sometimes.
Wow.
So that's why keeping them in captivity is not really the best idea. If you do provide the proper nutrition, they do get obese because they're not getting to do a 5K every night, a 2 to 5K every night. And then a lot of our foods are just bad. It's bad for us, so even worse for them. You know, it's too much stuff going on with the food. One of their favorite food actually happens to be roaches. So that's what they eat. They eat a lot of bugs and grubs and so on. They will eat baby mice. They will eat little lizards, earthworms. They love their grubs and so on. So they're mainly grubbers. Most of their diet has to consist of protein. So the supposition that these guys are going to destroy your crops is not accurate because only 10% of their diet would consist of fruit. So most of the stuff they would eat would be other stuff. So there's a story about Manikou, a donkey dying in a field. And I mean, I guess we used to have a ton of donkeys in Trinidad because I hear this story in every village I've ever been to. So a donkey died in a field and somebody's grandfather went out to it there and he put a crocus bag by the rear end of the donkey and slammed on the dead animal, the carcass, and the dozens of Manicous ran out and filled up the bag, and he struggled with the bag and tied the bag and took home a whole bag full of Manicous. I hear that all over Trinidad and even Tobago. Okay? And they're like, yeah, they like to eat dead things. What happens when something dies? The decay starts, it starts smelling. And who's the first thing? The first thing, the flies get there. When the flies get there, they lay their eggs, which hatch quickly. Without 12 hours, they hatch out. And the little grubs start eating, turn into those big, fat, juicy maggots. That's what they love to eat. That's their favorite food.
So it's not the decay, but the things that eat decay.
Yeah, the decay doesn't have enough protein, really. It is not really good enough. The things that eat decay, things under, they'll even dig under, you know, something dead because that's where the maggots are.
So because he's scared, is it that's why his tail is so, like...
Straight? No, he's not really controlling his tail right now. But the tail is prehensile. So it's just like the tail, if you remember the anteater, the tail is kind of like the anteater, just much more narrow, but it is prehensile because they do spend a lot of times in trees, and this helps to wrap around the branches to keep them from falling and getting hurt.
Would you say that this creature is on the verge of extinction based on, you know, how often they're killed?
Well, I wouldn't say extinction because they do exist also in South America. Where they're not that much of a delicacy as here in Trinidad. Their price is actually going up because the rarer they become, you know, people are like, oh my God, that big bandicoot, I'll get 500 for it, and that sort of thing. But it's just becoming harder and harder to find. These things have actually adapted to an urban climate, and they'll be around your house. And sometimes they will come there and eat your dog food, stuff like that. And I think that's why a lot of them get killed by the dogs, because the food, you know. So I encourage people, please do not leave your dog food, the kibble, out at night. That is very, very bad. Okay? If you don't even care about wildlife, hear this. This is what happens, and this is what happens to your lovely dog, you know, your husky, or your jusky, and all your fancy dogs and so on. This is what can happen. You leave the dog kibble out at night, which is irresponsible, so we're telling you not to do that. But it will attract also the cane toads, aka crapo. And now the dog, seeing the crapo there around its bowl and so on, they entertain, may be tempted to bite it. And the end result is that your beautiful, expensive family member could die. So please, based on sense, if you don't care about these guys, we care about these guys, we care about everything. I don't want your dog to die. I don't want you to call me 3 o'clock in the morning and say, my dog just bite a frog and he's on the ground foaming and frothing. Take up the food. If your dog doesn't eat the food during the day, by 5 o'clock in the evening, take up the food. Don't encourage it to stay there and him to eat it at night. It's not good for his health.
You usually feed sometimes my dog at night.
But if you feed the dogs at night, that means your dog is probably an adult and on one feeding. So if you feed it at night, it will eat the food, and that's it. What it doesn't eat, you remove. If there's spillage around, you clean it up. Because all sorts of creatures are going to come for that kibble. Okay? Roaches. The roaches come, they could be scorpions, they could be centipedes. All of these can injure you and harm your animal. So just by cleaning up, it's just the same reason not to have garbage around your house. You're going to encourage things, and then you're going to call me and say, this is there and that is there. And then, I mean, I've gone on some rescues, and I was more afraid of the conditions around the home than anything else. Because afraid getting a nail running through my boots, so much garbage that would attract all sorts of different critters and so on there that you can't see. And there's really so much. And they're telling me, the snake inside there. I'm like, lady, I'm not going in that pile of garbage.
Not because it's snake, but because
you don't know what's in there.
Other
yeah.
creatures,
you know, push my hand, a piece of galvanized, run up below my finger and kneel. No. You know, so appeal, that's the next thing there. You know, the rainy season now is upon us. And now the water is going to make things even more messy. The grass is going to be growing all between and betwixt all that stuff. They're making it even more difficult. Jump off this weekend, people. Clean up your yards. Clean up your surroundings. You don't want these things coming in your house and bothering you. Clean up your surroundings. Because not only that, it makes for, you know, a contributor to the flooding. And when you do clean, dispose of the stuff properly, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
You know, it's just sad what I ever had to go through. I remember lending some people in the community a pump one time because almost waist high in their homes, full of water. And they said the water not going down the drain. This is what was in the drain. A busted old football and plastic bottles. Jam up the drain and everybody going back from there, waist high water. Wow. You know, so it's garbage, it's, you know, craziness we do. So back to this amazing creature. He does not spread rabies. Okay. He is not a rabies vector species at all. The reason why they're strange animals, they are very cold. So somehow with them and the rabies bacteria, they don't mix at all. So he does not, you know, they just don't spread rabies. Whereas like, you know, your raccoons and your other mammals that we have down here from Agouti and so on, they actually can. Mongoose is actually listed as a rabies vector species. That means it can spread the disease to you if it bites you. This
I
guy,
guess that's why people feel so comfortable eating it, because it's safe.
Right. But the strange thing is that they do have a bacteria in them which can be dangerous, even not deadly to other animals. Like in Texas, friends of mine, have a lot of friends from down there, and into livestock, horses and even cattle, and they will shoot every single possum on sight. Possums have a way of defecating in water. Lots of the small mammals do defecate in water, but they have a bacteria within their gastrointestinal system that when it gets in the water and then gets into a horse, it can kill your horse. Wow. So imagine $3 million horse passing from an infection from drinking water that was contaminated. So they do not take chances at all. I mean, there's now some technology that prevents them from going into the water and stuff like that, and a lot of them will actually turn down water containers at night. So it's the same sort of process. You take steps to mitigate and prevent these things from occurring. Because the worst thing, you know, you get up in the morning and your horse is laying there, and you ask your son, did you turn over the water thing last night? Oh shoot, I was playing and I forgot. You know, from a simple action. And a lot of things, as we need to understand, simple things that we can do can prevent a lot of pain and suffering and expense. But you have to do it. How long it would have taken for that young man, 15, 16 years old, to just turn over the water so that this wouldn't be attracted to it and the horse wouldn't drink that water during the night. You wake up in the morning and your beloved horse, and those horses, for those people, are part of their families, part of their lives, you know, dead because of that. So it's the same thing down here. There's so many things we can do right to make a difference. Clean up behind your animals, save your dog's life. So when doing so, you save the dog's life from frogs, and then these guys will have no food to come to your dogs about. What we have to deal with now is the regular people who do evil things to these animals. You know, holding them and slamming them on the ground. You know, I got footage of that, and I got so angry when I saw that. The lady had security footage that showed the dog, literally, the dog rushed at it. Big guard dog. So it rushed at the mannequin, so it ran up on the fence post and was kind of running through the wrought iron by the gate. And a piper, you know, one of these sort of destitute people who sort of roam and oftentimes get into your property and do illegal stuff and removing stuff, he saw it and he ran up to it and grabbed it and slammed it on the ground and then took it away with him. And when she looked down with the camera there, you saw the babies running around. Remember, they grew up in the pouch, right? So some fell off when the dog rushed at her. She luckily got away, but some of the babies fell, but he wasn't studying the baby, he was studying the mother. And then this character came and slammed, and when he slammed, you saw the other babies fly out of the pouch. So she was just able to assemble them and got them to us, and we rehabbed them and released them. We're looking for safe places, but there's hardly any safe place. These animals are so important in our ecosystem because of what they consume. They also eat ticks. So right now we are not on the list of places affected by Lyme disease, but we could. And if and when it does hit Trinidad, it's going to be spread by ticks. And I don't know if I've told you before, I've shown you, even snakes get ticks on them. The frogs. I've seen, remember one of the most traumatic is a big crapo literally came hopping up to me. They usually go away from you. Hopping up to me, and he just sort of stood there and he's like, oh gosh, I'm tired. I was looking for you. I looked at him and he had this massive tick literally hanging from below his neck. You know, it's always, you know, I don't really believe this, but it was almost, you know, in a satirical way, if somebody could say, he's almost like if he knew you could have helped him. Okay, but he was just going his way. I can imagine his body would have been drained by such a massive tick, and he had others on him that he just didn't have the energy to run away, and he just sort of stood there. So we helped him out, remove the ticks, and set him on his way. But that's how easily it can go from your animals, from the wildlife, to your animals, and to you. And Lyme disease ain't no joke. It messes people up big, big time. We don't want that here, and we could get it here sooner than later because of illegal smuggling. People smuggle things into the country. They don't go through health and quarantine procedure, so you don't know what's coming in. So we run a lot of risks doing stuff here in our country, and we have to be very, very careful. Very careful, because we can be endangering our own lives.
So you marsupials kind of clean themselves, like, you know how they take their hands and like...
Yeah, because the manicure has hands. Telling you all.
Yes,
It is not
yes.
paws, it is not claws, it is hands. He has 5 fingers. His hand looks a little bit like Gollum, but it's fingers.
Yeah, not webbed.
Yeah, and then the fingernails too.
Yep, fingers. They're
He has
really,
a full set
It's
on, guys.
adorable.
You know.
Full set.
Yeah, I absolutely love the shade of pink. It's just there. He looks...
Look at him.
And he has knuckles. Guys, he has knuckles.
Look at him. Look at her wrist.
we do have some people who have successfully kept them for a while. The sad part about them is that
He has
they have
a wrist too. I'm so sorry. It just looks...
It's beautiful.
It's so cute.
They unfortunately have a lifespan of about 2.5 years.
Wow.
So they mature quickly. They get busy. They breed. They produce lots. Because they would also be prey species for a lot of other animals. Snakes, that's one of the wild snakes, mackerel, one of their favorite food would be that. We've had mackerel before, tried to feed them white rats and rats we bred, no interest. We got a maimed manikou, put it in, instantly.
He's missing his left claw, like...
Yeah, the back legs are a little strange because there's a big toe that kind of sticks out funny, because that's to help him to hold on. Okay, so it's almost like a opposable thumb. It's just like that's just his big toe. No.
No, I mean on the next foot.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
Oh.
And see it matching on that one too.
Beautiful.
That's how it is, right? So the claws grip on and the opposable thumb.
Yeah.
So remember, life of climbing and holding on to trees and branches and stuff like that. There.
Created for his purpose.
Guys, so just remember to leave the manicous alone. Leave them alone.
Call the center if you see them. What is something that they could do in the meanwhile before someone gets to the home?
If you find the babies, get them in a little box, even a shoe box, get an old t-shirt so they can wrap up
Is
in
it
oil
safe to
sock.
hold them? Because I know some animals, if you touch the babies, the mother eats them.
Usually when you see the babies, the mother is dead, unfortunately. And we've had a case, we have a video, we had to cut the pouch open and remove the babies from the mother. Because they were still sucked in on the dead mother, which is not good for them. So we had to do that and remove the babies. So they're pouched, they're marsupials, they clean up a lot of waste and pests, and they eat little fruit. Only 10% of the diet consists of fruit. And in cases where people have had them and like, oh, we just feed it for one banana. And I saw the animal and it was the most sickening sight I've ever seen. There is something called metabolic bone disease, right? Your bone disease, instead of metabolizing calcium and being healthy and strong, the potassium actually reverses calcium. So imagine that you're drinking something that is breaking down your bones. Okay? Correct. So this animal had several broken bones. And the animal was like, it's called rickets also. Broken and just all over, just mangled, And they said, look, he's so calm, he doesn't do anything. And I'm like, he cannot do anything. Okay, he is broken and it's not going to live much longer. The animal was suffering. Then by that time, it was dragging its hindquarters, defecating on itself, And when I told them they needed to put Manny down, oh my gosh, I was the worst person. Yep, we call all of them Manny basically.
So best bet, the safest bet is to leave the manicure where it is and allow them to flourish in the wild, eat fruits if they want, eat bugs if they want, eat
whatever it is,
whatever it is else they eat, if they want, leave them alone and let them thrive.
They're not a danger to you.
Yeah.
And
So
they will never attack anyone. Never.
Yeah, they're very peaceful
They
creatures.
tend to back away.
Yeah.
So
the big ones will snarl at you and they say like, leave me alone.
yeah,
You know, but they will
but
not.
look
Yeah.
at it, guys. Another close up, right?
He's scared.
We're gonna wrap now. But yeah, leave the creature alone, please. It's adorable.
Just to leave the creatures alone.
Actually, I had one, but
Live and let live.
Live and Let Live.
Yeah.
Beautiful, by Mr. Ricardo Mead.
Right? Not everything is for your mouth and your belly.
Yes.
You know, your eyes can feast upon the beauty and the magnificence of creatures and their intrinsic beauty the way they are. All right? Just as I am fortunate each week to come and see these two lovely ladies and share time with them and teach them.
Yes.
Leave them alone and appreciate them where they are, how they are. That's it.
Yes.
That's it.
Thank you
so much for that, Mr. Mead.
As you guys know, you can always engage with us on WESNCC, YouTube, Facebook. The WhatsApp number will be up shortly.
Yes.
And engage with us whenever you want to. Yeah?
And you know, just to reiterate, y'all make sure you could go and check out the Above Board Company on Instagram. It's their name, the Above Board Company.
As well
no
as,
spaces.
As well as OM Publishing, One Momentum Publishing with Daniel
have
Francis.
a book.
All right, so stay tuned. We have Sean Michael Small coming up with Talking Points.
Yes.
He's right now.
It's always a good
Yes.
So guys, stay safe, stay inspired, stay informed, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow morning. Don't go anywhere. Stay for Talking Points.
Bye-bye.
WESN.
Here is your WESN News on the hour. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Police officer dies in highway crash near Couva Hospital. Family watches home burn as fire station remains closed. UE South Campus to open in August with a new medical school. Rainy season begins as flood prevention ramps up, and internationally, Spain targets 66,000 illegal Airbnb listings amid housing crisis. Now for the details. A tragic accident on the Sir Solomon Hotroy Highway claimed the life of Police Constable Zachariah Gill on Sunday afternoon. Gill of Edinburgh Chaguanas had just dropped off his 3-year-old daughter when his car veered off the northbound lane and slammed into an electric pole near the Couva Hospital. Dashcam footage showed his vehicle skidding before impact. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but Gill was pronounced dead at the scene. The car has been taken into police custody. A family lost their home to fire on Saturday as calls grew to reopen the Princestown fire station. The family said they watched helplessly for 45 minutes before fire officers arrived from Monterey Post. The blaze destroyed the upper floor of their Evergreen Avenue home with estimated losses of $500,000. Residents believe the nearby Princestown station, just minutes away, could have saved the home. It has been closed since July due to poor conditions and a rodent problem. Fire officials say a temporary location is being arranged, and MP Ayana Ali has pledged to push for urgent government action. UE St. Augustine will officially begin classes at its South Campus in Debe this August. The university confirmed the campus will house the new Global School of Medicine aimed at international students pursuing an MD degree. The program is expected to bring foreign exchange to the country. Other faculties will also offer blended courses from the campus, which features smart classrooms and student housing. UE says the site is part of a broader plan to establish a medical hub between Couva and Debe. Built under a previous administration, the campus was used during the pandemic but has remained largely inactive until now. Trinidad and Tobago has officially entered the 2025 wet season. The Met Office confirmed this shift on May 19th following significant rainfall linked to the Intertropical Convergence Zone. Minister of Local Government Khadija Amin says flood prevention efforts have intensified, especially in flood-prone areas like Caroni and South Oropouche. Equipment from all 14 municipal corporations was mobilized to clear drains and watercourses. Citizens are urged to prepare by collecting sandbags and reporting any issues. While the Atlantic hurricane season begins June 1st, early rainfall and tropical wave could bring more adverse weather. Internationally, Spain is cracking down on tens of thousands of illegal Airbnb listings as housing protests intensify ahead of the summer tourism season. The government says nearly 66,000 properties breach tourist rental laws. A Madrid court has already ordered 4,984 of them removed, with more rulings pending. Activists blame short-term rentals for rising housing costs, particularly in popular regions like Madrid, Catalonia, and the Canary Islands. Airbnb says it will appeal, arguing its neutral platform and that hosts are responsible for listings. Protests continue across tourist hotspots as Spain faces record-breaking visitor numbers and a worsening rental crisis. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi Macnish. Thanks for watching.
WESN. Her voice has mesmerized us for years.
And now, in a rare treat for music fans,
Shakuntala and Friends in concert, featuring Shakuntala Jangbahadur. Singing sensation Deval Jetlal, brilliant musician Dr. Shivanan Maharaj, master flautist and saxophonist Narendra Maharaj, with music from Shiv Sangeet Orchestra. Shakuntala and Friends in concert.
Shakuntala.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Struggling with heart health or frequent migraines? Discover the simple steps to reclaim your energy and vitality.
We're diving into a topic that affects about 422 million people around the world: diabetes.
Tune into Wellness Unlocked, the series that delivers expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and well-being. Your health matters. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and take the first step toward better health.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title, it's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we kind of at a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's been the victim,
right,
or the man has been the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
WESN.
Transition period is still ongoing because at the end of the day, there's a lot left that we don't necessarily know with regards to how the government is going to look moving forward. Government includes the minority opposition because right now, the opposition leader is technically not the political leader of the PNM. Right now, technically, I don't think they have a political leader of the PNM. As far as I understand it, Dr. Ethan Rowley has more or less resigned from all formal positions. They have interim officers in other parts of the executive. Of course, also there's the fact that Parliament is supposed to be opening on Friday, and that will answer other questions with regards to the senatorial lineup, not just for the government and opposition benches, but also the independent benches. And at the end of the day, there's also the position of Speaker of the House, President of the Senate, their deputies. These are still technically big positions to be had. And then, of course, potentially, you know, if there'll be joint select committees and so on, which I believe ultimately was a very valuable tool, more so than opposition debates in Parliament, opposition members on the joint select committees, and to some extent the independent members of the Senate being on those committees did allow for a bit more level of transparency that somehow, to their credit, at least in some cases, I can't say for all, but at least in some cases, the then government didn't seem to try to control and muzzle, at least not as much as they did when it came to their own public-facing communications. That said, I do think the Joint Select Committee system could be improved. It could go further, because at the end of the day, bipartisan oversight of things, more and more, I think, while yes, it might seem slow and clunky, we already have a system that's slow and clunky. We might as well have a system that will allow for more accountability and transparency. To some extent, we need to have a situation where our political parties will start to understand that at least on some things they need to work together. Although, to be fair to our local politicians, the situations in first world countries seemingly are de-evolving further and further down to our current position, as opposed to being something that could be an example we could look to. Hey, you see, and then they came together to do this, and then they did that. and look how they handle their business. No, they're kind of looking just like us, which is in a way shocking. We ourselves de-evolved from our high points, arguably. Now, back to the opposition party. There are concerns that the internal election is rushed. And I think now there are a couple of people questioning with regards to how the elections will be handled, with regards to the party delegates, or with regards to one man, one vote. That's more or less one question. The participation of its party groups, which I think what Mr. Ford and Mr. Manning were trying to say is, look, there's a certain way to do things that would allow. The problem with democracy is that not everybody has a good opinion. Not everybody is aware of what is best. That's why in some cases, think about your everyday life. There are times when a strong leader is needed to kind of pull the consensus back on something that makes sense, as opposed to whatever emotional bandwagon people are jumping on that is potentially on a runaway train off a cliff. Is the PNM like that? Maybe it is. And then, of course, now, there's degrees of that. So sometimes you need a strong leader. Sometimes you need strong leaders. And depending, more senior members of the party. Senior is relative. Doesn't necessarily mean age. Doesn't necessarily mean experience. Senior could be, in this case, better judgment. I mean, a young person with fresh perspective might have a better perspective in this moment. So maybe I should change. Leaders with better judgment, regardless of age, demographic, experience level, etc., etc. Sometimes an organization needs that, a good consensus. And now it's tricky because a lot of these things are subjective. But one of the things that Ashton Ford, his concerns are about, and this is the quote, any student of politics will understand that rebuilding a party begins with its foundation, the party groups. These groups represent the base, the ground troops of the PNM, and are essential to any effort at reorganization. Here's the trick with that. I do think that there are very die-hard members of the base in certain constituencies that may be telling the current crop of PNM politicians and the executive what they want to hear. That may actually be having a hand in driving the party in whatever direction the party is going right now, which does not seem fully like a good direction, but it's based only on what we've seen so far. We don't necessarily know what the intentions are of the 13 PNM MPs and the executive, which are technically two different groups. They are, but not mutually exclusive, obviously, because of personnel in some cases. So it's just very funny, and I think I've said this before, and if I didn't, I'll say it now, and if I did, I'll say it again, that the opposition is now saying, well, we need to have a political leader to be our opposition leader. Those two posts need to be aligned, like that. After the field experiment, I can understand why. But I will, for the sake of the PNM, have a counterpoint to Mr. Ford's point about his concerns that this situation is being rushed. The flip side of that is they need to settle their long-term executive to move forward. Otherwise, you're going to have a situation where the opposition party at the end of the day is going to be just a bit more disorganized than it needs to be. Now the question is, at one point, do you err on the side of haste or do you err on the side of caution? One side allows you to get to the point of being an effective opposition quicker, which you kind of have to do. You can't just forever be waiting to settle your internal business and then the business of the opposition of our parliament is kind of on the back burner. That's not a good thing. But the flip side is, the more time you take, in theory, the better the decision should be. And if you rush the decision, you might make some regretful choices. There's no right answer really in this situation. It all depends on a lot of circumstances that none of us on the outside looking in are privy to. But I'll come back to the point that I made years ago with the UNC opposition and now that I've already made with the PNM opposition. There are 1.5 million people in this country, and 1.5 million people should all want the PNM to come out of this stronger than weaker. Because if they remain in the same place or get worse from this already disastrous election result, we will lose one of the largest checks on government excess that our system of government has. And we already are in a situation where there is very little separation of powers between the executive and the legislature. We are missing that check because the system does not account for a government of our size. The actual UK Parliament is significantly larger, I think 12 times larger, and their cabinet might actually be smaller. So the sheer scope of their situation makes things a lot different on a practical level, even though on the surface it looks the same. Karen has said that, I believe, repeatedly now on Talking Point. So all of us, no matter who we voted for, should want our political parties to strive to be better than, and this is something I've been saying for a long time and I'll keep saying it. But I fear more often than not, we still look at the zero-sum game. My side has to win, your side has to lose, and I don't care what damage to the country happens in the meantime. As a side effect, as an unintended but very real consequence of our shenanigans back and forth. Now, a couple other things to mention before we take the break. The Minister of Finance and the Minister of Planning and Economic Affairs and Development have been made junior ministers of each other's ministry. And it goes back to the philosophy that Dr. Mohammed clued me in on from the very beginning, once the first set of cabinet was sworn in, the first major main group, that they will work in clusters. And this point was formally, I can't remember if it was formally declared by members of the cabinet, but Minister Swart Singh, he more or less said that the quote is, we will work so we do not just focus on the portfolio, we focus on a group of activities that will generate business, trade, and facilitate economic activity, right? The Prime Minister felt that both myself and Minister Tanku and the Minister of Trade have to work closely together as we seek to reshape the diversification portfolio and general work of the economy. So, it's not to say that this is the be-all and end-all of organizational structures, but things like this are subjective. It depends on a lot of things, but at the end of the day, there's no reason why this seems to be a bad model. And the whole idea, I guess, you could say that to some extent this is what Parliament subcommittees are for, but I guess you could say formal, or maybe you could say a combination of formal and informal relationships because you're positioning them together. So you're not trying to have all of these formal rules of we have a subcommittee and blah, 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 and I go back to my ministry and you go back to your ministry and then we meet for the subcommittee. It seems as though they're trying to position the ministries just in general as close together as possible, and to some extent that might allow for informal working relationships between members of different ministries, not just the ministers, to start to be fostered, hopefully, to try to get things moving quicker. Because one of the issues that all governments have is at times the left hand don't know what the right hand is doing. And then the public sees the results and are left wondering who the hell is in charge. And to some extent, being more interlinked in a way allows for internal checks and balances, right? In the case of when maybe somebody is missing something, making a mistake, your peers will be more readily positioned to point it out to you, to give you assistance. And it might allow for a more timely response for certain things, because there are a lot of things where really and truly multiple ministries could be involved. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is with the flooding. Remember when we had most anti-flooding exercises would have local government, works and transport back in the day. Same thing for now. And then to some extent, they could, agriculture could get involved, and the office of the Prime Minister could get involved. And of course, in this case, defense, depending on cleanup efforts, and if the regiment is needed to help, Coast Guard is needed to help, who knows. Police might have to be involved depending on certain situations, so that's a whole other ministry now. So there are times when you need a multi-ministerial approach and trying to foster, the point of trying to position them together in general, in advance, means that at least in some cases, you have pre-existing relationships where they kind of know how to work together. We take it for granted, but when you throw people in business, when you throw two organizations together and say, work together, it's not that simple. But if you start from the very beginning in a general sense and you start building up those relationships, and it's not just the ministers, it potentially would be all the people down the line, to the couriers that have to go into the other minister's office in order to get certain things. And all of these things matter because you never know what human error, slip up, inefficiency could mean for a certain project. Just remember when the case file disappeared, I think in the Kuhlman trial situation with the lawsuit, that could have been human error. I don't think it was, but it could have been a bad human error. And when you have different groups trying to work together, there's a greater chance of bad human errors. So hopefully we will see this implemented well, but to some extent it will depend on the leadership now of the various ministers. The Prime Minister set the tone. This is the structure that she wants, apparently. Now it depends on the various ministers and each individual binary relationship, and then in some cases the wider relationship of the cluster. So with the economic cluster, you could say there's finance, planning and trade / tourism. With national security cluster, there's homeland security, national defense, and to some extent justice. Justice also is linked to the Ministry of the Legal Affairs and the Office of the Attorney General. So they will all have to have their one-on-one relationships, and then of course how they work as a cluster, and then of course how they work as a cabinet. It'll be interesting to see if they have cabinet subcommittees. One of the things I fear is that at times, as government changes over, it's almost like if, no, you all did X, so we need to do Y, which is almost the same thing but a different label. We'll have to wait and see if that's what this turns out to be. And there's one last thing I want to point out before we take the break. MP Munilal, in his constituency lies the UE South campus, and he is quoted as saying, it was a horrific experience in a certain way to see after 10 years the state of disrepair, the horrific state of some of the areas of this campus. And the questions, of course, to how the PNM government could have let it be underutilized, not maintained for all this time. And I've kind of said this before, but again, I'll repeat myself over and over, because like the TTPS has to repeat themselves over and over, and like other institutions have to repeat themselves over and over, not to say that I'm an institution. But the more the government says things are bad, they meet bad situations. And I don't fault them for that. Don't make that mistake. Everything that's bad, they should point it out. If there's any mistakes or errors in their judgment on what's bad or what's good, then it's up to the, I guess at this point, it's really up to the opposition to effectively communicate reasonable situations as to why that's not the case. Hopefully with evidence. But the current incoming government, they're going to meet things. They should let us know what it is they find. We already complained the previous administration was not transparent. The trick, of course, is a couple of things. One, I honestly believe the reason why this campus was sat unused, like many other things, comes back down to overall budget. And this is why I'm not blaming the UNC for something they did or did not do. I am taking a scenario that I believe to be true that constrained the PNM, for better or worse. And like I said, how they manage the situation is where you find fault with them. But some of the situation was a product of circumstance. How they managed those circumstances was where they failed. But the circumstances remain. And I do wonder to some extent, this is part of the government trying to cut costs, so let's not use that campus, let's not use that hospital, let's not, although they did build 2 other hospitals, so that kind of throws that argument out the window there in that specific instance. But let's not do this, let's not do that, because they're trying to cut costs, they're trying to save money. They didn't necessarily do a very good job explaining it to us, hence how they managed the situation was bad. And now I fear that the UNC is not necessarily making the same mistake, but the current government is saying, we'll find you money, we'll fix this, we'll open that, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, we'll do this, we'll do that. Well, if it was that easy, I don't think, if there was corruption in PNM, and I say if because I have to, right? You determine, make of that of what you will. It's not like they stole half the treasury. So it's not like we have that much money if we just eliminate corruption. And while I complain about the money spent on the airport, that's not even 1/50th of an annual budget. So if we didn't do the new airport in Tobago, it's not like the money saved would have really made up the recurrent shortfall in our budget. And things like the UE South Campus not being maintained is one of the things that I've said for the last 2 years. The deficit is not the real deficit, because there are things that technically the government should be spending money on that they just don't. The deficit is what they technically just say they were allocating money for. But in some cases, like with local government corporations, they don't actually get the full annual allocation. So there are going to be a lot of things that weren't on the deficit that should have been money spent in order to maintain an asset or to utilize an asset, etc., or a program, etc., that wasn't done, that the current administration is now going to have to sort all of that out. We need to manage our expectations on what they could deliver from a financial resources point of view. They run the risk of not setting up realistic expectations with their communication and causing the public to have higher than reasonable expectations for them, and then that might not end well. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll welcome our good lady herself. Stay tuned. Talking about an WSN show, Michael Small. We'll be right back after this.
Her voice has mesmerized us for years.
And now, in a rare treat for music fans,
Shakuntala and Friends in concert, featuring Shakuntala Jang Bahadur. Singing sensation Deval Chaitlal, brilliant musician Dr. Shivanan Maharaj, master flautist and saxophonist Narendra Maharaj, with music from Shiv Sangeet Orchestra, Shakuntala and Friends in concert.
Shakuntala,
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
Where good private health care is affordable.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond
wanna-
to me.
respond to
me
you?
how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents, the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
I'm back here on talking about the WSND Contact Capital Show. Michael Small, joined by Karen Shashera, former Minister of Finance, whose insights are, in a way, even more important now because former minister means she kind of knows what goes on with regards to the cabinet and that sort of thing. And of course, there's a lot to get through because cabinet is still forming and plans are still making, and finance is always going to be one of those things, right?
So I just wanted to congratulate Kennedy Swartzing, Dr. Kennedy Swartzing, because he has his PhD as a former colleague of mine and a friend too. And I wish him all the best. I know he will do well. We've had a little conversation before he was selected, nothing in detail, but I think he's going to do the government and the country well in his appointment. And I was listening to you before I came on, and it was strange that you said the exact same thing in relation to the clusters that she's creating, which is a good idea. You don't want to put too many ministers or ministries in a cluster. So the three that she's identified, which would be in relation to him, is the planning, economic development, and then with the
finance and trade.
Right. So and I think that's a good cluster. And the point you had made, which I had thought of, I said, but I hope they will put them under one roof, because that probably will facilitate because you will have informal circumstances where you'd want to speak with your colleagues who are working together on creating this sort of coherence, which is missing, and also to avoiding delays or duplication of efforts. So I think it's a good idea.
Because if everything is in silos, then it's going to take longer, right?
Right. I mean, you could have remote, but it's never going to replace being under the same
being able
roof.
to just walk to the next floor.
Yes, never. And then having informal meetings, something comes up.
Yes.
So anyway, just wanted to say congratulations, Kennedy, Dr. Swart Singh, Minister Swart Singh, doing the country well.
I think the only thing is this is a new look. So of course there's I don't know if they've ever kind of like tried to do it quite this way before. No. So it's going to have challenges. Don't expect it to be perfect.
Exactly.
And it's going to be dependent on the leadership of the ministers.
Exactly.
But given that at least some of the cabinet are, senior technical experts in their fields.
But I think more importantly, in relation to this thing, as you said, I came from being in government.
Yeah.
You have a lot of technical expertise. You have fantastic permanent secretaries, fantastic staff, and you also have consultants so that, that aspect of it, they can flesh out your ideas. But what you really need in a case like that is someone perhaps who has cabinet experience. And I think that may have been a consideration because he brings a wealth of knowledge, not only in private sector and working as a consultant in Barbados, but also being in government. And you understand cabinet notes, cabinet minutes. I mean, I'm not saying they don't understand it. I'm sure they'll catch up very quickly as you have to, but he'll give that sort of
No, but I think also when you're trying to make something new, it's one thing to have a technical expert to advise you, but remember the person in charge still has to assess the advice if they will take it or not. When one of the people at the top of this cluster has that technical experience, now they can help guide in a lot of ways that the lack of experience, both as a minister, as a cabinet member, but also in certain fields and working within a ministry, that will benefit, right?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, that's why the cabinet appointments, some of them being essentially political outsiders, but they're experienced people, unlike some other experiments of the previous administration.
But that's nothing wrong. I was
an experiment.
I was an experiment, and I don't think
but the previous administration had a spectacular failure in one case. And
Okay,
this is not
that.
This is not that, right? These are experienced people, so that seemingly don't have political agendas.
I don't know.
So that's the one good hopeful sign that I'm still riding the wave on from the cabinet appointments. I'm like, hopefully we could get some work done. We could see government do some good work here. All right. So with that said, now on to something that the government inherited.
Right. And so what last week when I was here, we were looking at what were the options. And I did say, because I think it's only right and proper for me to have done that, to say that Ria Tate in an article set out the potential options that were available to the Police Service Commission in relation to Earl Christopher either being reinstated, resuming her duties, and what the implications of that is. So I'm not going to rehearse all of what I had said there. What I wanted to look at since the decision of the judge, Suchan, I think it is, has been given, and you're hearing a lot of commentary in the public space, some of which is a bit misleading, and I just thought I would just refer to some of the issues there. So one of the things, 4 issues I wanted to bring, and I'll just hopefully deal with it in a briefly. The difference between resumption and reinstatement. Resumption versus reinstatement. I know I said it last week, but I'll say it again. The reason why there was only really one option on the table and not 3. The third point is the decision of the judge to decided that the judicial review application that the Police Service Commission had acted unreasonably and outside their powers in not suspending the Commissioner of Police, suspending with pay was an unreasonable decision. He said it was not, and he looked at the circumstances. 2 main things I think that influenced them. I'll look at that briefly. And then finally, the senior counsel has been telegraphing, Pamela Elder, who represented the Commissioner of Police, has been telegraphing from the very beginning that she intends to pursue appeals. And I suspect this matter will go to the Privy Council. Now, I don't know what she's going to say and what her grounds of appeal are, so I'm just giving an indication what I think she may be, how she may be appealing some of the grounds in any event and based on statements that she has made in the public space. So the first thing, very quickly, and it's an important distinction, resuming her duties versus reinstatement. If you reinstate someone, that means you fired them. That means you terminated their employment. That means you disciplined them. Right? And so you reinstate. There's something called re-engagement, which I won't go into, but reinstatement means if she was left out, on leave after the investigative stage had been completed, and they made the decision to charge her. And at the end of the investigation regarding the charging and given an opportunity to be heard and all of that, and they made the decision to reinstate her or terminate her employment order that was very close to her end of her tenure, that would be a disciplinary decision. So the first stage, where she was suspended with pay, was not discipline, but it was the investigative stage. Okay, so that and therefore reinstatement did not arise because she was never fired at that stage. It had two stages. She was being investigated to determine whether there was a grounds for charging her and whether there was grounds for removing her, even though her time in office was coming to an end. So that's one big difference that people have to understand. So what she was supposed to have done when the court made their ruling and said that she could resume her duties, that meant that she had never been fired, never been terminated, and someone was acting on her behalf until she came back on the job. Okay, which brings us to the second point, why there was only one option on the table. And also the way in which they went about, which was very untidy, but I don't think there was much choice in the matter. Right. There wasn't much choice, but it was untidy and unfortunate to say the least. And that was that although the matter was heard on the Monday, I believe, I think on the 12th, I think it was, because her last day would have been the eve after, I always got the 15th and the 14th.
I think it was the 15th.
Okay, the 15th. So in any event.
But either way, 14th or the 15th.
It was very close,
yes.
very, very, very close.
One of those 2 days in May.
Very, very, very close. So on the 12th, when the Justice Uchan made his decision that the suspension was lifted, but that the Police Service Commission had acted reasonably in suspending her with pay in order to carry out an investigation, because when you do that, suspend someone with pay during an investigative stage, it's either the seriousness of the charge, in her case was misconduct in public office, which is a serious charge, and also the position she held within the police service, which is at the top of the pyramid, and therefore the possible opportunity for her to interfere or affect the proceedings and the investigation if she was able to be in the office physically. So he took those two things into account, and according to his decision, and also he must have been affected by the decision of the DPP the day before, when he finally said she was not going to be charged. The arrest does not mean a charge, and he was satisfied that the evidential standard that was necessary to charge her for that, it had not been reached. So that probably was another incentive. I don't know. But in any event, when he decided that she could therefore resume her duties, because she was never fired, but he found the Police Service Commission acted reasonably, so she did not succeed on her judicial review application, then the whole confusion started to happen, because Senior Counsel Deborah Peake, who was acting on behalf of the Police Service Commission, said that she told the court, she said to the court that now that the suspension has been lifted, she's free to resume her duties, and in fact she even said that she expects her to get the letter from the Police Service Commission by noon that day. So her lawyer, Pamela Elder, took the position, well, I mean, she could go back in the office, but the whole, and this is all going to be tested, I suspect. Did she have to get a formal letter from the Police Service Commission, or was the word of senior counsel to the court as an officer of the court sufficient for her to have resumed duties? Because that would have been the problem. Because what would have happened if if she had been allowed to resume duties on that day, even if it was a short period, doesn't matter, for a short period, then immediately on that happening, the Police Service Commission would have had to written a letter simultaneously to the acting Commissioner of Police and revoking his appointment to act. Now, if they had done that, then if he was to be reappointed, because remember, her service came to the end on the 15th, and you didn't want to leave the police service without a Commissioner of Police, then they would have had to go back to Parliament to have him reappointed to act, or hardly likely put any substantive post. That, I don't think that was doing. But the point is, they'd have to go back to Parliament. And Parliament was not prorogued, which is a temporary suspension. Parliament was dissolved. So they couldn't go to Parliament. And if they had done that, that is what would have been the outcome. Would we be without a COP, as the article had said? So what did they do? It's really untidy, but that's what they did. What they did They never gave the Benjamin any revocation because his appointment was not revoked. Why? Because as she came back immediately, on that same exact day, they wrote her a letter saying that she was to proceed on leave, accumulated leave of, I think, 60-something days. Now, anybody who works in employment, is employed in private or public sector, knows that if you are going on leave, accumulated leave, that does not mean that you are no longer in your position. Somebody has to act for you whilst you are on leave, and she should have taken her leave during her period of tenure. So when the Police Service Commission wrote to her and told her to proceed immediately, I think it was the Police Service, yes, the Police Service Commission wrote to her and told her she had to proceed immediately on leave, it means that she was not fired, she was not terminated, she was still in the position, but she was not to come to the office. She was to go on leave immediately.
And an acting commissioner
and the acting commissioner continued without having to go to Parliament, which was not in session. It was dissolved and could only be reopened when the new term had begun, which is supposed to be on Friday.
Right. I think the key to point out is if a superintendent goes on leave, somebody within the police service will decide who's acting on behalf of him. But if the commissioner is not available for whatever reason, Parliament has to choose an acting commissioner of police. And
well, if the person, I don't know that is, I'm not sure about that, but I do know, I'm not sure about that. I don't know that is accurate. The Police Service Commission has to decide that because I think under Section 123 amended Constitution 2006, the Police Service Commission has the power to discipline, transfer, terminate. They have all those powers. They don't have the powers in relation, which they pointed out, when it comes to a terminal condition of employment, that is set by the ministry. But when it comes to all those other things, those matters are dealt with by the Police Service Commission. So the point about it is he was already acting, so there's no point, he didn't have to do anything, he was there already, and she was not dismissed, she was not terminated, she was sent on leave. So anybody who is in a position in any private or public sector, if you have accumulated leave, and you're sending, if somebody has to act for you, you're not terminated, you haven't stopped acting, your job is not ending, it hadn't come to end and you come back and start a new contract unless you're on a contract situation. So that is how they went about it. And the point I wanted to make now, the final point on that. So it's untidy. It is untidy how they had to do it. But I don't think they had much choices. I mean, the fact that the Parliament elections were called for the 20th of April, whoever won, you see, so you can't necessarily say that the former administration did that deliberately because they didn't know if they were going to win or lose, did they? I mean, maybe they did, but in any event, maybe, but anyway, the newspapers were saying...
Sometimes we wonder...
Yeah, but the newspapers were saying it was close. The point is that they put this situation, they created this situation, really. No, I can't say they did...
Calling the election when they did.
Yes, calling the election when they did. No, they did it because I think that's a reasonable assumption to make. They did not want the Auditor General's report to be late because constitutionally, it must be laid by the end of April. And it's laid in the Parliament, both in the Senate and the lower house. So I think that was the driving, among other considerations, I'm sure, but that would have been a consideration. So that is what happened. It's untidy, so they had to do it in that order. Because if they hadn't done it that way and let her resume her duties, that means you can't have two commissioners of police at the same time, so they would have had to revoke Benjamin's acting appointment. So to avoid that, they sent on accumulated leave. So that was the answer to that. Now, the last point I will make, and that is what has been telegraphed from Senior Counsel Pamela Elder from the very inception. She has been talking about the fact that particulars of the investigation, what she was being investigated for, that the Commissioner of Police was being investigated for, so that she could respond to the Police Service Commission, not DCP Martin, but the persons who were responsible for her terms and conditions, who eventually would have given her the letter of appointment. That's who has to give her an explanation. And from all that, that Pamela Elder has said, the letter coming from the chairman of the Police Service Commission was lacking or void of particulars, and according to what she has said, she certainly did not have a chance to respond. In any event, she wouldn't know what she's responding to. So what you're dealing with there is breach of natural justice, a right to be heard. And the question, of course, is, does that apply to the investigative stage? Yes, I think I tried as best as I could, definitely at the charging stage. at the investigative stage, it must be, because I must know what you investigated me for so that I could respond, so you can make a decision whether to go forward and charge or not. So I suspect that that is going to be one of the grounds if she goes forward. I'm not the lawyer, I'm not on the team, I'm just predicting that will be done. As I did last week and said that what was going to happen did happen. And it's not that I had any information that I wasn't supposed to have, Mr. Sean, but it is because...
I didn't say it. I didn't say it again.
You know, but because it's the only thing that made sense legally.
Right.
It's the only one they could have proceeded with.
And there is a case, I don't know how good of a case it would be, but even if Parliament was available, given the fact that, you know, the court matter they got the ruling on the 12th, a couple days, 2 to 3 days later is when her contract is up. There is a case to me that this probably might have been just on that very specific and unique circumstance where are you going to reinstate her, go through the process to, if Parliament was able to reinstate her for a couple of days and then have to reinstate the acting commissioner. Like, there's also a practical level of, Junior Benjamin is acting, do we need to go through that motion? Might as well just, and also she has accumulated leave that has to be dealt with as well. So there's a lot of other practical reasons, I think, behind this decision.
I think they would be very concerned about allowing her to go back and sit down in that seat, you know, because, I mean, I'm not saying that she would have done that, but that's one of the reasons from what the judge said, that is not only the fact that it was a serious charge, but also her position within it. And she's at the top of the pyramid, and she was arrested and detained for nearly, from the 30th of January to the May the 2nd, and the morning of May the 2nd, on instruction of the DPP, she was let go. I mean, I cannot see that that is not going to end up in some sort of going up to the Privy Council. I would not be surprised with what I had previously said.
Yeah.
So, but I said I'm not the lawyer in the matter. And I think that they were concerned that she would, of course she had friends, she had people that supported her. And some of people would have been angry with what had been done. So if she had gone back in the seat, she would have been legally entitled unless they had order had been made to bar her from there. And that would have been a difficult thing to actually put into practice. So there were a lot of considerations, and there's the law on this, and we are just like with the Auditor General report, we have to wait for this one.
There's a breakdown with regards to now, like, her in the police service and a whole, like, I don't even have the words, right? But that whole situation broke down. To put her back in that situation now just for a couple of days, there's not a lot of merit to it. So it just makes sense.
But you can't look at it that way. You know, you have to look at it from her point of view. You know, it is a humiliation that she was, yes, but so that if they had allowed her, even if it was for 2 days, to resume her position as the Commissioner of Police, it would have made even the optics, you're dealing with people as a subjective thing, it would have given us ameliorated some of the pain she felt, not much, but it would have made a difference. Right, and so telling her not even, you can't, she went back to the office, my understanding was, and then she was told, but you have to wait on a letter from the Police Service Commission, and she never got it until I think the Wednesday, and that was deliberate. Now, I am not putting any, I mean, a lot of people speculate about politics, and you know, you can't exclude that, but from the point of view of the Police Service Commission, even then, I don't think there were many options that were available to them given the situation. So I don't want to prosecute that matter.
That said, though, I felt before I questioned on the proficiency of the members of the Service Commission with regards to executing their duties. And I won't go into it, right? Yeah. This is just my opinion, but based on what you said, I have more questions about that. I'm not really liking this situation. But again, folks, this whole situation, and we're not going to not bring it up, right? It might, some people might think it's a dead horse, but all of it started with the merit list. Because that affected the Police Service Commission, that affected everything. The whole thing was derailed from the merit list. I won't go so far to say the whole thing was derailed when they appointed Gary Griffith as commissioner, but you kind of, one bad decision snowballed into multiple bad decisions by multiple people down the line. That's my opinion on the matter, but you have something else to get through today as well.
That again is
for the next topic.
Right. So the next topic is on the issue of the death penalty. And again, I'm not going to prosecute that too much, only because we've dealt with it before. So I'm looking at it from a narrow window. And the narrow window is based on the fact that, one, that the Prime Minister has announced very early in her term that she is going to reinstate or resume hangings. So that's one thing. And the question arises, of course, to what extent is that practical, is that pragmatic, or is it a good political strategy? You know, that is really going to be a question that you'll ask. And the second, so coming out of that is the death penalty, the issue of whether you can, whether resuming hangings is a possibility. And the second point was this, because it's tied in a way with that, is, you know, there are two sides of the aisle, let's say, or two perspectives. Should we go to the CCJ, or should we retain the Privy Council as our final court of appeal? Many countries, Ghana did it a long time ago, Barbados did it fairly recently, I think, I can't remember the exact date, but they did it fairly recently. Belize gave it a 6-year period, and then after that, they would then end appeals to the Privy Council and go to the CCJ instead. So it also ties in with that, because on the issue of the death penalty, the CCJ, in one of the most well-known cases, Nerve versus the Queen, because remember, they're not a republic, they're still what we were before, just an independent country. So it's versus the Queen rather than the state.
The head of state is still the Queen.
Yes, Queen, right, there we go. So the reason why that is important, because the differing positions that the Privy Council it takes on the issue of the death penalty. And I want to just read, right, I got it. So what is the difference? I don't want to go in, as I said, too much into it. So the death penalty. We had a decision in Jamaica, Pratt and Morgan versus the Queen, many years ago, I think it was 1993, when the decision was made that after 5 years, after 5 years and going forward, anyone who has been convicted of murder, their sentence has to be reduced from the death penalty to life in prison. Now, how did that happen? Because we all have a similar provision, which we inherited from England when we were all colonies of England. And that is the Offences Against the Persons Act. It dates back, I think, to 1925. England has repealed that and changed their law, but we still have it. And according to Section 4 of the Offences Against Persons Act, which is our law and the law of other Caribbean jurisdictions, it says every person convicted of murder shall suffer death. So it doesn't give you any wiggle room. You hear the word shall is mandatory. So the question arose in a number of cases, and this is where all the confusion started to arise. And I'll just mention the 3 cases, and then I'll go to the point why the CCJ is different from the Privy Council. So with the with the Privy Council, once you have crossed that 5-year period and you have been delayed in carrying out the execution, the execution, then it is converted to life in prison. And that is because the countries that still have the Privy Council as their final court of appeal, if they make that decision in Pratt and Morgan, they'll make that decision in all the other Caribbean jurisdictions that have the same provision. And why is that act of 1925 of England still applicable to us? Because in our constitution, we have it as Section 6. Barbados has a different section because Nerve is a Barbadian case. It essentially says that any laws that were existing before we became independent and then before we became a republic, those existing laws would continue to be the laws of our jurisdiction, even though they offended Section 4 and 5 of the Constitution, which means your rights, your freedom from oppression, freedom from all the things that torture, all the things that go with having just rights that we all have. So it's that even if it offends it, it still is good law as long as it remains your existing law. And that is why it's the savings clause that saved acts that we had before. Now, what you could do is repeal it and change the law, but you need a very special majority to do that because it's a constitutional provision and you're dealing with someone's life. You can't go further than someone's life. So that will require really both sides working together. So up to now, we don't have that. So that is I think maybe you need a 3/4 or 2/3 majority to do it. I'm not sure. But in any event, with the Privy Council, they are very anti-death penalty. I mean, their policy that is the British policy. So they will find any way that they can to frustrate a person being put to death. And it usually takes much more than 5 years for you to finally exhaust all your appeals, and they know that, and we know that. So what the Prime Minister did say, she said many of those who were sitting on the, who were convicted and standing, waiting to...
Currently?
Yeah, currently. In death,
on death row.
Death row. She said most of them have had their sentences converted into life imprisonment because the 5-year mark has already passed. There are some it hasn't happened as yet, but it's more than likely to happen. So in a practical terms, since we are still part of the Privy Council, based on who we have waiting to have be in the execution, and those who pass the 5-year mark, and those who are going to pass the 5-year mark, no one is going to really, in practical terms, be executed. Because matters take so long to wind their way through the court. And I can't imagine that anybody who's sitting there waiting to be executed and has a lawyer working for him is not mindful of the 5-year mark. So that is the position of the Privy Council. Now, with the CCJ, the famous case 2018, Nerve versus the Queen, and that was a Barbadian case. As I said, Barbados became, made the CCJ their final court of appeal, and this case was tried by the CCJ. Now, this is what, in that case, they have said that the word shall is not to be interpreted as mandatory. It is to be interpreted, I'm not going to go through all the law in it, but it's not to be interpreted mandatory, but to be interpreted discretionary, may be put to death. So you leave in discretion on the judge, because not all murders are equal. Now, I'm not talking about manslaughter, involuntary, but I'm talking about murder. It's murder they're dealing with. So they're saying all murders are not equal. There are other mitigating factors, there are other factors, and therefore you should leave a judge with the discretion to determine whether he will impose the death penalty or not. So the interpretation they have given is to give the judge the discretion up to the death penalty, which means he could do something less than the death penalty, and have interpreted that term in the legislation, which Barbados has very similar to ours, that the word shall means really, when you interpret it, to mean may, because it is not right that the British and their colonial, which they have abolished their, that law, that we now have that same law in countries that are independent. And why do I say that? I'm going to read from the judgment, paragraph. Okay, so Lord Hopman had said at paragraph 56 in another case, he's talking about the Constitution of Barbados, which deals with that savings provision. He said existing laws are to be immunized from constitutional challenge on that ground because we had inherited it. So now, this is what the CCJ said about that. This is what they said about it. There's a large body of jurisprudence which perpetuated the view that the common law contained all the rights in which newly independent people could aspire. The inescapable conclusion being that the function of all the Bills of Rights was to police post-independent laws, not past laws. This view does not sit well from the perspective of former subjected people who are convinced that all people have an inalienable right to complete freedom, the exercise of their sovereignty, and the integrity of their national territory, which includes the right to freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. It is also inconsistent with the aspirations set out in the preamble of the Constitution above. And the last thing I'm going to read, this is important, at least I thought so. The General Savings Clause is an unacceptable diminution of the freedom of newly independent people who fought for that freedom with unshakable faith in fundamental human rights. The idea that even where provision is inconsistent with a fundamental right, a court is prevented from declaring the truth of that inconsistency just because the laws form part of the inherited laws from the colonial regime must be condemned. Professor McIntosh, in a book, Caribbean Constitutional Reform, has said, he noted to give a literal effect to the provision as written was to deny any special eminence to the Constitution, and in particular, its fundamental rights over all other law. He emphasized that the horror of this brought home to the intelligent mind when one realizes that the literal consequence is to give prominence to ordinary legislation over our Constitution. So essentially, you can see from that decision, it was very much motivated to interpret the shall as may, to say we are no longer a colony, you know. We're not a colony anymore, and you are not going to take away the discretion from a judge to impose a life sentence rather than death penalty, and therefore 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, doesn't matter. because we're not making a decision based on Pratt and Morgan. And in fact, Barbados repealed that provision with the Pratt and Morgan and said it does not apply. They repealed it in their constitution.
Right. They went all the way to changing their
yes,
constitution.
They actually made the provision that the Pratt and Morgan did not apply because that's a Privy Council decision. So what they are saying is you cannot tell us, newly independent countries who fought for that right, inheriting a provision from 1925, that our judges must be deprived of the right to exercise judicial discretion and have to impose a mandatory provision. We're not doing that. So that is why I'm saying, in conclusion, if you stay with the Privy Council, based on the case of Rudall and Matthew versus, which overruled Matthew, I don't want to go into all the nitty-gritty, but the bottom line is that although the Privy Council in one case, I think it was in Matthew, which was heard in, Rudall, which was heard in 2003, they said that it was that same provision, Trinidad, as a Trinidad case, was discretionary and not mandatory. But in 2-2s, the Privy Council overruled the Matthew Rudall case and determined in Matthews that it was mandatory and you had to apply it unless the Pratt and Morgan exception applied. So the bottom line is the time period doesn't matter if you're going to the CCJ. In Trinidad, it still has the Privy Council as a final court of appeal with a death penalty case. These decisions, which have been made by the Privy Council, the one I just mentioned, which is Matthew versus the state, you don't have a discretion except from Pratt and Morgan. So that's a big difference between the two.
I think in
you
this
understand
case,
it? I mean, I hope I was playing it. No, you felt you were class.
A little bit. I was trying to keep up. Because technically this is, folks, if you might not be following it, don't feel bad because this is the second time Karen is telling me
oh my God, then I'm not explaining it well then.
No, but from what I understand, right,
yes, you say it now.
The situation that we find ourselves in, or let me go a step further.
Right, let me hear.
To move on from the Privy Council because of one ruling, but the flip side is look at that ruling. We have a foreign final court of appeal that's to some extent based on their society and their mindset. Right? Making determinations on a major aspect of our criminal justice system that is also based on foreign, outdated law of their society that is still being applied to us.
Because of the savings provision.
Because the savings provision that they moved on from.
That's correct.
So it's not actually one foreign influence, it's technically two, right? That is being applied to us. So on
what's the main difference between the two? That's what I want to
No. I'm talking about the Privy Council. I'm talking about the fact that we have the saving clause.
So what's the difference between the CCJ and the Privy Council on the issue of the death penalty? Where do we
No. What I meant to say is with regards to the Privy Council, they're applying their modern sentiments and interpretations to past outdated law. And those are the two things I'm saying. That's if we stick
practically,
if we stick with the Privy Council, it's not just the current Privy Council interpretation, but it's also the influence of that past law that's being applied.
Right,
and it's kind of crazy when you think about it, right? Now, with the difference with the CCJ, well, the CCJ to some extent will give us, it will remove the time limit and give us more flexibility, right? So we'll have more room to maneuver. Now, the trick is, would we need a 3/4 majority to move on to the CCJ? It seems like every solution, ironically, comes back down to what is the majority in Parliament, right?
That's right.
And then one could argue, which course of action might be more palatable with regards to debate?
That's a whole other discussion we have. But you made a good point, though. The point being that once the Criminal Court of Justice removed the Pratt and Morgan restriction, which in effect nobody hears a matter to its conclusion in 5 years, so effectively right. But at the same point in time, by giving a judge a discretion in exercising whether life sentence or the mandatory sentence, it may, and not imposing a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 year limitation, it might be a little more it's in a way maybe less attractive, whereas you're sure that once you pass that 5 year limit, when you're with the Privy Council, you know you can't be executed. But if you're removing the 5 year limit and saying you may, then it means that even if you are there for 2 years, and the judge figures that, well, you know something, this murder is terrible, the CCJ is going to say that it's a case that warrants the death penalty, then maybe in a way it's you know, but the whole idea is to move away from being a colonial
I think
power.
that's the other thing. The fact
it.
that on a practical level, we can't get through the appeals process in 5 years.
No.
And it makes the foreign influences. That's why I say it's a foreign society sentiment. It's not
That's
technically
correct.
our
That is
sentiment, right?
That's correct.
That's the big question.
That's correct.
But
that is correct.
Oh gosh, there was another point that I wanted to make. The flexibility of giving it to the judges.
Right.
I do feel that there's
That's
a difference, right?
Yes.
And it might be subtle.
Yeah.
But bear me out. There's a difference between a judge saying you are going to get life imprisonment. That's what's hanging over your head, as opposed to, well, we wanted to kill you, but we can't.
Right.
So you'll take life imprisonment. One is like, I got away with it. The other one is,
That's
I didn't get away with it, right? Psychologically.
That's right.
Because consequences to society, to some extent, is based on psychological perception of the situation. And if we're saying, look, for these things, this is what we want to do to you. This is what we want to do to you. Put you away for life. All of a sudden, it's not like I got one over on the government, I got one over, I got away with something. Now it's like, no, I'm going to get hit with what they want to hit me with, right? So we have to wait and see how this goes, because they have a 2/3 majority. Even with the TPP, it's not a 3/4 majority. We're not sure if it requires a 2/3 or a 3/4.
Right.
So, and you know, this is one of those things.
But you do need a special majority. It's not 3/5.
I would argue for the opposition, or I would argue it should be easier to change the laws around the death penalty than to change from the Privy Council to the CCJ, because that's a wider issue that affects more things, right? Whereas if you just deal with the death penalty directly, that's targeting that situation directly. All right, we have a call on the line.
Point.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, politics sometimes doesn't make sense to me, right? Our local politics with regards to implementation. We have a call on the line waiting. Good morning, caller, on here.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning to Sean and Mr. Shearer, a lady I greatly respect and admire.
Thank you.
So this is what I wanted to say this morning. Now, I'm someone always rooting for the government in power to succeed. You know, because if they succeed, I succeed, my family succeeds, society as a whole benefits. But what I have to say, it really seems like the last government did not understand how deeply people felt abandoned. And if they were aware of that feeling, it makes their leadership look even worse. And I'm going to give a simple example. For about a year, could have been more. I've been conservative with the year, but I think it was more. A section of the Churchill-Roosevelt Highway near Santa Rosa was milled and just left there. Now that thing turned into a wavy, bumpy mess that most people were avoiding driving on, obviously. So we were mostly left with one drivable lane on the highway, right? And then about a week after the new government came in, the stretch of road was fixed 1 week after they came in. And bear in mind, again, I am really, honestly, genuinely someone rooting for any government who goes into power to win, because I understand my life is going to be better. So therefore, I have to ask, why was something so basic left undone for so long that other government came in and in a week's time fixed it? So there doesn't seem to be any logical explanation sometimes for how things were handled by the last government. Unless, and I'm just wondering and asking a question, is the logical explanation indifference to the people and to the population? And, you know, I listened to what Sean said earlier about the what Munilal spoke about, the campus that is in neglect. Okay, so I understand that that's a huge thing to manage and but how do you explain a little piece of road that just needed paving that was left like that for so long? There is just really no logical explanation. And then on top of that, I mean, you know what was the last straw for me? When people like me, because I have to say I'm an ordinary man, catching my skin to go through life, and then these people got increases in salary. That was the straw that broke my back. And prior to that, just before the increase, I had to fork out whatever little shillings I had to go and pay property tax. So thanks
Yes,
for taking
caller.
my call. Thank you very much for taking my call. I really enjoyed this program. I look at it almost every day for both information and for different views and perspectives. So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, caller. And I agree with everything you just said. 100%. I couldn't agree with it more. I feel for you with regards to the property tax situation. I think there should be refunds no matter how difficult that is, but that's a whole other debate. And I think you're right. I think for small things like what you pointed out, indifference or a lack of awareness, it could be the main culprit. But that it also could be translated to, well, it might have been a public servant who was supposed to do it, and why the government could still be at fault indirectly is the oversight and accountability of the various initiatives, programs, public servants underneath them, right? It's not necessarily going to be all directly their fault, but to some extent, yes, given how the election went, it's hard not to ask the question, were they just that indifferent? Because I'll tell you this, they still, to some extent, seemingly don't have a clue on what 2/3 to 3/4 of the population actually think and feel, right? They're getting some bad feedback or limited feedback, and they're running with a limited perspective potentially because of that. We have Faisal on the line. Good morning, caller, you're on here.
Hi, morning.
Morning.
Karen, morning, Sean. Karen, I want to touch a little bit on the CCG. Yes? And, you know, I understand that as a layman, there is not confidence in the CCJ by a vast majority of the population. And I think there is that fear that, you know, there might be political interference and what have you, which to me is a fair concern. I'm not saying it is the truth, but it's a concern. I think what they should have done is gone on a marketing strategy to educate the population, to build that resilience and confidence in the population, where I think you can convince them that the CCJ is the way to go. The other point I want to make is that, you know, the 5-year period, I think rather than blaming the 5-year period as a getaway card and all that, I think a serious effort should be made to fix the system. That 5-year period is simply because we have a broken system, Karen. Do you agree with me?
Well, let me just say that the 5-year period is the way in which I believe that the British tried to control their own views on anti-penalty, because the anti-death penalty. So by putting a 5-year mark, they probably knew that most of these cases would not have been exhausted by the 5-year mark. So that way of the judges sort of interpreting the legislation in such a way that people would not be hanged. And that's what has happened. That is the effect of what that Pratt and Morgan case.
Speaking to a criminal defense attorney caller, fixing the system, I think you're underestimating how difficult it would be to fix the system.
No, I am saying to you, as difficult as it might be, but I am not seeing no genuine effort to have it fixed.
Yeah, that's fair.
That is where the problem lies. I have no problem with it being difficult, you know, but there is a job to be done and somebody has to do it. If there is a genuine effort to do it, then the public in itself would come to realize, hey, this is very difficult, you know. So one way or the other, we have to get justice, and the CPJ might be the way to go. But not when you have people deliberately manipulating the system for not having it work. Okay? Have a nice day, my lady.
Thank you.
Also, I mean, I'm not too sure if 5 years, because I think inmates on death row in the States, some of those matters might take longer than 5 years.
Much longer. But
So-
what he's saying and what it means
Yes.
is that they know that is the Privy Council who are anti-death penalty, and they want to indirectly impose their
a standard that's too high.
They want to impose that on us, and how they go about it. Justice Elabosi, when he was Chief Justice, wrote about that. He said, imagine we have a statutory provision that allows for that, yet in spite of that, we have a Privy Council imposing by judicial intervention, making that statutory provision ineffective, and that is our laws. So the 5-year mark, they know that in 5 years, based on our that they're not going to exhaust all your appeals. Once you meet the 5-year mark, you go back, you're going to be, your sentence is converted to life in prison, and that's the end of that. You're not going to go further with it. So that is the intention. And first point you made, yes, you're right. I mean, I kind of agree with that, because I do think that there is really concern not about the ability or capability of our judges, but I think the society is so small. We are, it's such a small society that people have to have confidence and faith, and I don't know if we have reached that point. Hope has made I thought it was a good intervention. I mentioned it already, that when it involves the government or the state, that matter should still go to the Privy Council. All other matters could go to the CCJ until the confidence in our system is, that we finally have the confidence of true justice being done. But I do understand the concern that you have expressed.
Yeah, the thing with regards to the trial lengths or the system breakdowns in the criminal justice system, after speaking to a criminal defense attorney, the problem is not only are there bottlenecks that pre-exist, bottlenecks that you can't easily just double capacity, right? But also the crime situation is growing exponentially, whereas to judges and labs and clerks, you could additively increase that, but you can't multiply judges by 5. And the amount of matters before the courts, not just murders, right, but a whole host of matters, the rate of growth and the scale of the growth compared to the size of the system we have and how much we could realistically increase the number of judges by. Really and truly, it's not about, you have to fix the system, yes, but you also have to get a handle on the crime situation and bring it down, because the sheer volume of crimes, it's what's kind of also causing everything to take so long. Because when you have 500 crimes in a month as opposed to 100 crimes in a month, but you can't clear it all in a month, the wait times are going to add up. Anyway, that's just oversimplification. But we have 2 callers on the line. I think the WhatsApp call should be first. So we'll have to ask the other caller from us to go to wait. WhatsApp call. Good morning, caller, on here.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning to Mrs.
Morning.
Nunes Teixeira, calling from Trin City. Mrs. Nunes Teixeira, thank you for that explanation with regard to the Pratt & Morgan provisions and the implications of us probably moving from the Pratt & Morgan, from the CCJ to the
Council to the CCJ.
To the CCJ. I agreed with your last statement. While I was listening, we should go to the CCJ for certain things and keep the Privy Council for particular things, as you mentioned, until the society has the confidence to move to the CCJ. I don't have the confidence to move to the CCJ as yet. And I'm not a lawyer. That is not my forte. I follow law. I read. I understand what you explain, right? The experts explain to us, laymen, about law. I will not feel confident if the Auditor General took the matter to the CCJ, because in her mind or in my mind and others, I'm not sure she would have gotten justice.
And that's sad.
We're not sure.
That's sad.
And that is sad, right? So we have to go to what is the fabric of our society. There are too many wrong things taking place in our society that clog in the courts. The industrial court clogged up, right? The industrial court, on the other hand, have cases piled up high because of toxic work environments in Trinidad and Tobago, right? We have to have living justice. When we go to work, we must have justice at work. When we go to the grocery or store, we must have justice in the store, our community. We don't have that. So we have I wouldn't say lawless, but there are too many loopholes that advantage people, and people have they have no resort. They are resorted to taking things to the court and clogging the court. Land issues. The court is clogged with land issues. There are a lot of dishonesty within the land settlement system with regard to willing property over to family. That is a nightmare. That is beyond cobweb. That is cesspit level toxicity, right? And again, you have operatives and you have minions within the system of land settlements and registration, working for and on behalf of the evil parties with regard to getting land. It reached the point where family members pay another family members to bump you off, murder you. So again, you have a murder in court because of a land settlement, a land issue with regard to family. We have to reconstruct our fabric of society in a particular way. The caller who mentioned the piece of road that was fixed 1 week after, that again is toxic. That is because nobody instructed the guys at Ministry of Works, so nobody gave a contract. some way or the other to go and pave the piece of road. Because I know the piece of road that she's talking about. I live in the east, I frequent Arima and Price Mart and all that, right? So you know, you have that kind of a, listen, within the police service, a sergeant, even though he's senior to a corporal, in some stations and some jurisdictions, some divisions, the sergeant cannot give the corporal an instruction.
Right.
Telling you, you know why? Sergeant, you do your work at this level. Corporal, you do your work at this level. There should be no meshing. You understand? Sergeant give corporal instruction. Corporal is to a sergeant. This is what I do. You know?
Caller, we have another caller waiting, so we'll have to.
But a wonderful contribution. We don't want you to take
I will cut it short, but I'm grateful for the explanation you gave on the CCG and the Privy Council. God bless you. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. We do have another caller from El Socorro waiting on the line. Good morning, caller. You on air?
Yeah, good morning, Ms. Karen. Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
The last time, Ms. Karen, if you remember, or if you guys remember, I called in was January the 22nd this year.
I have to remember that. Why wouldn't I?
And it was concerning the fire report that took the life of MP Lisa Morris Julian. Up to now, where is that report? Perhaps in this new dispensation, we might see that report publicized. But secondly, also on this property tax. Now, I mean, Minister of Finance, Mr. Tanku, made a glitch. He said, well, you know, we might pay it, and then the Prime Minister pull him up. Tanku, where get any money? But this tax which I paid, and hundreds did not pay it last year. I no problem with it, no refund, but it was draconian, to say the least, because my mother's property in Barataria was charged, what, $5,000 for that particular year last year. And that was rental income not earned. Now, I don't mind paying property tax, but that, as I mentioned, was draconian. And the question is, before I leave, where is this money now, this money that was paid last year? Is it in some fund in the Ministry of Finance? How is that going to be utilized? But I'm happy that this tax would be now repealed. I was never against it. But the calculation was just maddening. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the implementation had a lot to do with persons not being in favor of it. But I just wanted to say there's an article, a letter written by Dr. Emil Crown, I think his name is, and he addressed that issue of expectation that Faris Al-Rawi gave as to why the payment should be made. It's a very good article, and I'll just give the one first point, which is just about all you need to talk about. He said in legitimate expectation, when you're dealing with a state entity, which is what the Ministry of Finance is, you have to show that it is not the law and that you're not breaking the law in order to enforce that legitimate expectation. And he said, right, the law is that you have to pay property tax, so you cannot enforce expectation in an area where the law says that you have to pay property tax. So basically, he poo-pooed the whole idea of the expectation argument in relation to the refund of the property tax. And I think what is I wanted to say this in relation to the lady who called about the road, right? And also I could say it about even this, about the refund. You see, people, I think it's important to understand that I think the Prime Minister understands, I think she does understand, that right now she has to build a confidence, a trust, an understanding, an empathy with the people. And people are willing to, they understand what she has inherited, and she's not standing apart from the people. They're not standing apart from you. So I think they would give them a pass, and if they continue, look with the flooding, when they go out there, they acted immediately. You're just seeing a different approach, and this is what people wanted, and they're seeing. And if the government continues with that, but also is able to take proper fiscal measures and increase the revenue earning capacity, which is a whole different consideration, I think they're on the right road, and I think people did not hold it against Tanku, for Minister Tanku, for speaking out. It's unfortunate he said that, but it happens to a lot of us, and you know, I think people will give him a pass for that.
I slightly disagree. I do think that they could get a pass I'll go on further, but we have a call. But I just want to say, I will think they could get off pass, but it's going to use up some of the goodwill capital that they have. I think so, because you get a pass here, but now we're less patient.
How were you going to deal with the refund?
Well,
that was just, I didn't even believe that was...
I understand that it's technically difficult, but we're talking about the perception of the public who does not necessarily see things that way. We have Faisabat on the line. Good morning, caller, on there.
Good morning again, John. Good morning, Carl.
Morning.
Karen. I think coming down the road, the Prime Minister and Tanku will address and give back the people their money as soon as the economy gets better. And I know they're going to speak that language as we go along with it. Karen, one thing I want to ask you, is there a possibility with the arbitration of the fake oil scandal when Petrotrin were advised to...
Not
to
appeal?
AV? To do the appeal.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
Tell me something. Can that be challenged? Because I remember...
Revisit that?
Yeah, the board went against the advice of their own attorney because they withheld certain documents that were not presented to the arbitration panel, as I understood. So help me now to find out if we could reopen that matter. Thanks.
Well, on the immediate response to that is you have a certain period in which you have to file an appeal. And I have been, when I used to work with the state many years ago, I remember a matter coming up before the court, and it was thrown out because it was statute barred, meaning that the period of appeal had already passed. And the argument that they had put forward is taking note of the Christmas season, the judicial, and it didn't pass muster. So unless they're coming with something using public law points or issues, I don't think they're going to be able to resurrect that. But it's just another example of why people lost confidence in the government, because when you read that arbitration report, my goodness gracious me, it's very questionable.
We have San Fernando on the line. Good morning.
Oh, is it Mr. San Fernando? I've been missed him.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Karen.
Morning.
I missed you, huh?
Well, I have still been looking at you and Sean, my favorite TV personality. You know, I looked, Sean, you remember my no vote campaign, right?
Yes.
It seems it has worked out in another way, because the amount of people that stayed away or did not, were so disgusted that they did not vote for the PNM. While I had my issue with both parties still remain the same, I am an observer. And what I have observed since the election, just going around to the same people I spoke to, people who just interaction with, there has been a somewhat ease in the level of tension within Trinidad and Tobago. Well, at least within Trinidad. I haven't been to Tobago as yet.
Yeah.
But there's an ease in the tension of people, how people felt while before the, April the 28th. And that says a lot for what, and that says a lot for Ms. Prasad Bises's goodwill, as Karen is stating. She has been given a big mandate, and she has been given a lot of goodwill. And Mr. Tanku's, I understand the situation, and while I disagree with repealing the property tax, I think it should be reworked, not repealed, because people need to pay property tax in Trinidad and Tobago. However, I am one that would give her a pass, or would give them a pass for this, for that statement. And I'm just observing to see how Trinidad and Tobago moves along. One of the things that that was being said just now that by the caller from Trin City, and I have to say this in his response. You know, Trinidad and Tobago is an inherently corrupt society. So corrupt that it is frightening based on people like Karen who would have information and understand what's happening in the society. Trinidad and Tobago is a
You got me frightened when you said based on me. So when you said I'm an example of corruption.
I think it's pointing out that you...
Yes, I know that's what he meant, but I got scared for a moment. I thought this is a review. This is another thing of, was it? Either information from last week.
I did say it. She said it.
Yes. It doesn't matter to me.
The level of corruption in Trinidad and Tobago is astounding.
Yeah.
At all levels. And I am hoping that this is one of the things that this government tries to fix. Tries to fix the internal. I mean, it's a tall order, and I don't think it's a 5-year plan either. But at least if they show us that they would start, because like the lady, I am all gung ho for anybody in power to make Trinidad and Tobago better. And I am going to give them my even though I didn't vote for them, I didn't vote for anybody, I just voted my ballot. But I will give them the benefit of the doubt thus far and my support going forward until they show me something different. Have a good day, lady and gentlemen.
I think she did two things that were very, very helpful. She admitted that she made mistakes. She said that she had done things the wrong way before and that she had admitted. She didn't identify what they were, but I think we could understand what she meant by that. And secondly, I think, well, that was one definitely that she's done. You've seen the makeup of her cabinet and so on, reflecting that. You've seen the decisions she's making, reflecting that she understands the errors that she might have also made and wanting to make good on her governance. And I think that has helped a lot in terms of people giving. It's not just goodwill, because she showed a level of humility that is often missing from our politicians. And I think after coming out of Dr. Rowley, where his own cabinet ministers were afraid of him, and the country was afraid of him, anything after him would be an improvement. I was supposed to deal with the not a
No, we don't have time for that.
You're buffing me?
Yeah, well, I have to, because we have some comments to get through.
Oh,
and I
sorry.
have a point on this situation to make. Let's go with the last comment first, because it's relevant to this discussion right now. If you could get it. Like me, Tanko understood that a refund was expected, so it was not foolish to expect a refund despite the difficulties. That is a sentiment by the population. This is why I understand what you're saying, Karen. I understand Mr. Sanfan, and I agree with you. You all are more than willing to give a pass, because the practical reality situation is not so easy. So you know that the refund is not that easy to do, right?
Yes,
this is the problem. The outcry over the SRC's salary recommendations was more about how it looked than the practical strain on the government's treasury. Right? The actual amount of money, it wasn't as though the reason why the unions could only get 4% wasn't because of the SRC recommendations. Right? The amount of money for those salary increases in terms of the national budget wasn't that much, but it looked bad. That situation is not too similar to this. When you on principle say that we're going to get rid of property tax, but we can't refund you, right? It kind of looks as though, well, you're kind of coming up short with what the sentiment of the population is, because not everybody could have. You see, the problem was they're saying that there was a strain on the population, so we're going to remove the strain. But like one of the callers, she went through the strain already.
I went through this train already. And
but
I had one to pay, and I was so glad when I heard them say that because I don't have to pay it anymore.
Right, but you see, to some extent, there will be people who could less afford the money that was spent. Because I had a conversation with somebody else, and when I made the point to him, he had to concede. Just because you could absorb the strain, right, doesn't mean that everybody could absorb it to the same level.
So they're not going to do it anymore. They've abolished it.
I know, but the point is some people diligently paid, and now they're going to feel as though they are unintentionally being penalized for trying to do the right thing. And that is going to, it's not a big deal, right? But on principle, optically, it looks bad. There's no other way around. I understand you agree with me, but...
and guess what? I'm not alone.
I understand that, but I'm fairly certain the people who don't agree are the people who understand it on a technical level, and the people who do agree with you, right, are people who understand it on a technical level, and the people who don't agree with you will probably be those that don't, and that might end up being the majority of the country, because if everybody showed that level of technical judgment, the SRC thing wouldn't have been as big as a scandal as it was.
I think we should.
It might have still been a scandal, but it was not as big or not as severe as it was.
Okay. we'll agree to disagree on that, but I really wanted to deal with the Prime Minister pension because we do it next week.
Yeah.
And the reason I wanted to is it falls in with what the lady had started with talking about the road and how people are so insensitive. That is the height of insensitivity, and I am very strong on it, and I think that is one of the matters that should be amended retroactively. You can do that, and that's one of the things they should take to the Parliament very early. Don't let a lot of time pass by. Let it come early, and let us deal with that because it is wrong. And let me see what the opposition bench will do. Let me see what MP Stuart Young will do. Let me see how much of a servant leader he was going to be. That is politically a smart move. That is a good move for the country because it symbolizes the contempt and the out-of-touch behavior of that PNM, which is why they lost that current leadership of Dr. Rowley. On many levels, you're going to have a win-win situation. I want to see how they are going to argue that should be made. I want to see what they'll argue. They can't argue fit, and I want Stuart Young to be number one that has to speak on it.
We saving it for next week? Or?
Yeah, we're saving it for next week.
There's one thing I want to wrap up and close with, and that's just to say, because the whole situation with some reports not being revealed, this came from the comments about the fire report for Lisa Morris-Julian.
Because,
right?
That's what we know.
Here's the thing. Notice the government released the Paria Commissioner Inquiry report. And I suspect, I don't know for sure, this is just my suspicion, based on the track record, that report was given, other reports like CLICO was not. And it makes me wonder, were they guided and made decisions based off of principles, or I suspect, or it could be a different reason, but I suspect the reason is, what's the PR consideration in the moment, right? Because then now, we gave out the Paria Commissioner Inquiry report and we took licks for that. Well, you took licks for that in part because you didn't actually follow through what the report recommended or give us enough of a reason why you're not going to do what the report recommended. So you couldn't deal with the publicity that the report now garnered. Why are we going to reveal other reports? With the TSCT report, this report, that report. Like, it does make me wonder. Maybe I'm wrong, but you have to understand, it's the perception of the situation where your inconsistent application or decisions makes me think, well, you're not applying principles, or you're not basing this on principles. You're basing this on whatever other considerations in the moment. That's why I say PR or spin, right? And that's part of the reason why I know we disagree, but I feel on a principle level, I would have been better with But to be fair, it's not that big of a deal, and I do think I said that before. I just think that it would have been better.
Right. We agree on that.
But with moving forward, though, to some extent, I'll believe that the CLICO report is revealed when it is revealed.
Please.
Promises of it being revealed means nothing to me. Promises of because the past administration, I know it's the past administration, but the current government inherits that.
Yes.
The past administration said, we'll reveal this, we'll reveal that, we'll do this, we'll do that. You have to now prove that you will do it, not just also say you're going to do it, and then it waits. Right? Because you need to convince us that you are basing your decisions off of principle, because the last guy didn't do a good job of that. And we hope to see better. We also hope that the PNM improve, but that's the bookend my today's episode of Talking Point. But we'll have to wait and see with regards to the internal elections. Parliament is opening on Friday. We also wait to see on that. I'd like to thank all the callers. I'd like to thank all the commentators. Actually, to bookend the show, just the first, we had a comment early, right? Good morning, the taxpayers' money doing all those buildings, so I don't see why the building's sitting there instead of finishing it. Government go and government come, should continue building. Thanks. Here's the thing, and the caller on the road said it best. The road, that's a minor expense. You build a building, but then to utilize the building, it's a significant amount of money. And the sheer number of situations that the PNM caused like that makes me think it's a wider problem. It's not just, or it's a UNC project, so we don't want to continue it. I do think it's wider than that. Yes, some projects languish because of that, but I think it's because of budgetary constraints, and then it's easier to say, well, let's do our projects and not do their projects, because we don't have enough money for both, right? So the challenges remain. That said, thanks to the commentators, to the commenters, thanks to the callers, thanks to the good lady herself for joining me, talking about the WASN show. Michael Smoke, Karen Shashera. Want to remind you once again, stay safe, have a good day. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other, and never forget, it's nice to be nice. Even if we agree to disagree, we're still nice. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Her voice has mesmerized us for years.
And now, in a rare treat for music fans,
Shakuntala and Friends in concert, featuring Shakuntala Jangbahadur. Singing sensation Nepal Chaitlal, brilliant musician Dr. Shivanan Maharaj, master flautist and saxophonist Narendra Maharaj, with music from Shiv Sangeet Orchestra, Shakuntala and Friends in concert.
Shakuntala.